with a huge selection of Overland equipment in stock for online orders, or you can visit their showroom located in Springfield, Missouri. Either way, Artemis Overland Hardware will get you equipped and ready for your adventures, wherever they may take you.
You're listening to the 4x4 Podcast, the podcast all about four-wheeling, overlanding, off-road racing, and the outdoor lifestyle. We talk about news, tips and tricks, answer and interview big and little names in the off-roading world. So whether your rig is busted and you're in the shop wrenching on it, or you're on your way to the trail, join us and we'll keep you plugged in on topics to help you get away. Here are your hosts, Dan, Craig, and Rich.
Well, hello, I'm your host, Dan, and we have Rich and Craig both here. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Doing all right.
Awesome. We, I think, maybe got the demons out of the soundboard here. The sound quality should be improved, but there's a lot of stuff to pack into this episode. I was mentioning before that this is on track to be one of the lengthiest episodes of the 4x4 podcast yet, and it's also going to be released kind of right on the heels compared to our track record of other new episodes. But before we get started, I want to say a special thanks to all the new listeners to the podcast that I met while I was out there at King of the Hammers out on the lake bed, hanging out on the race course. Welcome to the 4x4 podcast. Pace yourself. I know there's some folks that say they go back and they listen to the entire catalog. I don't know how they do that, but this is episode 161. We've got plenty more coming. So pace yourself as you go back through the old episodes. So tonight on the podcast, we have a fairly lengthy interview with Billy Creech. He is on Instagram as Fractal Exploration. And it's worth noting that this episode really, I think, should be dedicated to Dennis Casebeer. We mentioned him on the podcast, or on the interview there, but this one is really made possible by Dennis and all of the work that he has done to contribute to the capturing of all the history with the Mojave trail system now and everything that he's done. If you are going to run the Mojave Road, I recommend you get the guidebook that's available on Amazon. I'll make sure there's a link to that here in the show notes. This is like the preeminent book that kind of walks you through the history and a mile-by-mile almost kind of everything that you're going to find along the road. And you can drive the road with the map that you'll find on like OnX or Gaia or something, but you miss out on everything else that comes along with it. And we talk about that with Billy here in the show, but Dennis is, like Billy mentions in the interview, he's older and he's not doing great. So that's why I really want to rush this one out, because Billy said that he would like for Dennis to be able to hear this episode before he does pass. So this episode is specially dedicated to Dennis Casebeer. And whenever you're doing exploring out in the desert, or especially on the Mojave Road, just think of what it took to capture all of that, and just say a special thanks to Dennis's family. And there's ways that are mentioned here in the interview. So just again, Dennis, from me and my family to you, thank you for everything that you've done. All right, without any further delay, let's get to that interview with Billy Creech. Tonight on the podcast, I'm really excited to speak with Billy Creech, who's going to be telling us about the Mojave Heritage Trail and some of the desert explorations and all kinds of exciting things near and dear to my heart, since this is in basically my backyard. But Billy, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Oh, and we also have, this is kind of a rare opportunity where we also have Craig and Rich. So at any time, if you have a question, you can just kind of elbow me out of the way and fire away with your question. But before we get into talking about the East Mojave Heritage Trail, can you tell me a little bit about your background, Billy, and how you got into off-roading?
So I was born and raised in Southern California. So the Mojave Desert is pretty much the backyard. I used to race, back in the 80s, used to race motocross. So we would go out into the deserts and practice and just fun ride. In 1987, my girlfriend's parents, I grew up drag racing, so I raced dirt bikes, and my folks were, waitress and a cop, and we drag raced. That's what we did. So I grew up pretty much Orange County Raceway, Fontana, and Riverside. So that was kind of what we did. And my grandpa helped do a lot of the initial construction out at Salton Sea. So we used to go camp out there and ski and in our boat and things like that. But my girlfriend's parents, they camped, and that's what they did. They had a 73 Scout and a pop-up trailer, and they did their annual trip every year. They had a group of people that they would meet every month at Pizza Chalet and plan out their annual week-long trip to Death Valley. So 87 was kind of my first trip out there, and was just blown away. The geology is amazing in Death Valley, and it's so varied and so otherworldly that it just kind of grabs a hold of you and doesn't let go. No matter what you do for the rest of your life, it's something that you'll always remember. So, we kind of, after a couple of years, we went our separate ways, and I was off. I went to the East Coast doing school. I had done some rescue diving, done a lot of things, but rescue diving was a big part of it. And then ended up at Cornell, and then from there I ended up in Northern California and continued drag racing. And then about 11 years ago, we kind of reconnected, and she had kind of kept the camping and hiking thing going. So we started that back up again with a little pop-up trailer, and that morphed into more aggressive, more longer duration stuff. And then we just happened to be at Barnes & Noble one day, and I saw a book called Overland Journal, and that I picked it up, started reading it, and Chris Collard was the editor of it at the time, and he had written his letters from the editor, and I read it, and it just kind of hooked me about, don't wait, get out there and do it.
Yeah.
And, so it was like, wow, I want to go do this. And so that's when the mods on the truck started. And I have an Avalanche that everybody's like, why an Avalanche? Well, it's because it's what I had. And when you really look at it, you sit down and really look at it, and you put pen to paper what most overland vehicles and what most overlanders try to solve, the Avalanche solves a lot of them.
Yeah.
So went all in, and here we are. So,
that's cool.
So yeah, it's been fun.
So I'm kind of curious, how did you end up at Cornell? Like, what was it that drew you there? What was it you studied?
Well, so I used to do some stuff that kind of had me looking at going back to school, to go in like the FBI, things like that, and realized I was good at some things. And then I read a couple of books while I was back in undergrad. And one of them was kind of the last bastion of real competitive advantage. It was supply chain. and so I was like, ooh, that's fun. I could do the corporate gig, and I could play in everybody's sandbox instead of being pigeonholed. So I looked at, who's doing that, and it's the management consultants. Okay, so how do you become one of those guys, right? And I don't want to be hunting them. I want them hunting me. So where are they hunting? They're hunting at the top 10 schools. What are those schools? What does it take to get into them?
There you go.
So then I just kind of mapped it backwards and went. And got to Cornell, loved it, amazing school, phenomenal academic experience. Never knew school could be like that, and have been doing supply chain ever since.
Very cool. Well, when we're all done with this, then we'll have to geek out. My master's is supply chain, so we'll have to talk about that a little bit more later. But so let's transition a little bit and talk about the Mojave Heritage Trail. So I know, Mojave's in the backyard. You probably did a little bit of exploring, at least, to get out to some of the areas where motocross and enduro is a easy thing to do. But there's tons and tons of stuff out here to explore. To kind of walk you into it. So I've been into off-roading for a long time. I had a chance to go be a co-driver in the Baja 1000. And while I was down there, I just randomly bumped into somebody who was involved. I'm not sure what capacity now, just helping update an edition of the Mojave Desert Explorer book, or the Mojave Trail. Had worked with Dennis Casebeer. You're going to know Casebeer. Okay. Yep. So he turned me on to that, and it's just something that is always kind of burned in the back of my brain that I want to go explore the Mojave Trail. And now I know this is so much more, but that's how I kind of got pulled into it. Can you tell me a little bit, kind of your background with the Mojave Trail and the Heritage Trail, really?
Yeah. So the Mojave, right? I mean, I've been out there a lot, and right, you do Mojave Road, right? That's the guidebook that you're referring to, where they updated it with the GPS coordinates.
Yep.
Really, that update was very useful. But it was simply, right, Mojave Road is an A to B route. And if you're new to overland or off-road explorer, whatever you want to call it, whatever the term du jour is, it's a relatively short trail. I mean, if you're new to it, it's going to be like, oh my God, it's 3 days, it's 140 miles, it's all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's relatively speaking, it's 140 miles. It's a day trip if you know what you're about. But done properly, it's a 3-day trail, right? Where you're stopping, you're exploring, you're investigating, you're checking things out, you're taking your time to actually enjoy the experience and not just ripping through it. So that's a great route, and there's a ton of history, and it's a world famous route. People come from all over the world to do the Mojave Road. Dennis, when he conceived that route, because he kind of found out about it through, he was like you, right? He was in the Marines, not Army, but Marines. He was stationed out there, and he, on his weekends, was exploring in the desert. And he kept stumbling across something called the Old Government Road. And then his career took him post-military to the Naval Surface Weapons Center in Norco, California. Mm-hmm. And which is where my girlfriend's dad worked as well. They knew each other.
Okay.
And Dennis, his job took him to Washington, D.C. a lot. And so in his research, his curiosity, he started going to Library of Congress, trying to find out what is this Old Government Road. And he started finding out some of the history on it. So he became obsessed with it, right? That's what he started doing, was every time he was in Washington, every free minute, he was at the library getting into the archives to get everything he could. And over time, right, he was able to piece together this historical route and all of the history of it, right? It's the original Wagon Trail West. It's the original mail route. It had cavalry readouts on it. It had Indian battles. It had all these things.
Wow.
The settler trails, the springs that are set up, all these things that are there. Dennis's original concept for that route was a hiking trail. 140 miles across the Mojave Desert, right? From Fort Mojave to Camp Katy near Barstow. And he hiked it twice when he was mapping it out. So when he mapped it out, he did it on foot. And
I can't even imagine that.
It was like, right. He came to a sense and he's like, nobody's ever going to do this. So 4x4s, let's try it this way. And so he popularized this thing, right? He started just evangelizing it. Pre-internet, pre-podcast, pre-tech, right? He's going to four-wheel drive clubs. He's putting on slideshows. He's giving lectures. He's telling people about it. He's like, hey, do this. And one of the things that he's smart enough to know, right? Dennis, back in the 70s, if you go back through the texts that he's written in 1975, 74, 77, you're going to see the words tread lightly. You're going to see overlanding. You're going to see all these things that were not the term of the day or a trendy patented term.
Right.
It's a legit mindset. And so that's what he did. And he knew that by doing that there was a chance, because it was the only route across the Mojave, that people would be drawn to it and that people would use it and potentially overuse it. So he put a mailbox on it. The purpose was for people to sign in, and he put it in a place that only people doing his route would come across it and sign in. And then that way he would go out there once a month and check on it and see how many people were using it. And he figured out really, really quick that this is getting popular. This is going to cause a negative impact on the ecosystem here. So he and his friends of the Mojave, Road, right? That group that kind of has morphed into the Mojave Desert Heritage and Cultural Association out in Goss.
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, okay, let's do something about this. Let's create an alternative. And that'll to get people into other parts of the desert. And they spent 4 years doing the East Mojave Heritage Trail. These 4 segments. Segment 1 is Needles to Ivanpah, the original Ivanpah, not the one that shows up on your Tom Harrison map, but the original one, which is close to the Coliseum mine.
Okay.
Not close to Nipton. It's not the one that's called out on the maps that's by Nipton. It's the one that's actually by the Coliseum mine. Then segment 2 is from Ivanpah around a Rocky Ridge, and then Rocky Ridge to Fenner, and then Fenner to Needles. So it's a big loop and 660 miles. And they spent 4 years mapping this thing out and getting all of the history of everything you're going to come across over 660 miles of Mojave Desert.
Wow.
And they published these, each of these segments are published in a guidebook, really nice hardbound. I don't know if you have a set, but 4 books. They are beautifully published, beautifully illustrated, hand-drawn maps. Very accurate and precise mileage. Well, precise to them. So we'll get into that. But essentially, they did all of this heavy lifting on trails that have never been used. Right? They created this thing. They connected stuff. They made the whole loop, and they worked with BLM to do this. And right after they completed the route in 1990, I think is when segment 4 was completed and published. In 1994, here comes the Desert Protection Act, and it whacks that trail in 13 places and impacts at least 75 miles of it, which the guidebooks, the way they're laid out, is if you deviate at all, your mileage is off and your geographic landmarks are gone. So they become useless. So Dennis spent well over $100,000 of his own money publishing these things, and he just kind of became dismayed, so they gave up on it. They just let it go. And for me, here I come, well after the fact, I was researching another route out there, and I came across something, EMHT. I just saw it, and I wrote it down on the corner of my map with a question mark on it. Didn't think anything of it because I was researching something else. And then a buddy of mine, Jay Waxler, he was out exploring in the desert, and he posts a picture of a logbook. And you could tell that this sucker was old. And I was like, what is that? Where are you? And then he sends me a picture of this mailbox. And it says, East Mojave Heritage Trail, Box 3. And I was like, my map. This thing is real. This thing is something. So that is what started my research into the EMHT. Found a set of the books, because they're obviously out of print. And started reading and rereading and mapping. And then when I realized, what had happened to the route, I thought, well, maybe there's a way to reroute this thing and make it compliant, and get around the wilderness areas. So I spent a year and a half working with BLM and remapping this thing to make it compliant. And then in May of 2019, I ran it solo with a buddy of mine named Tony. He sat in my driver's seat or in my passenger seat, and we did this thing single vehicle. It took us 6 days to prove out the route. And it was quite the adventure. We had a lot of things go down.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But we essentially proved it out. And then I spent the next year and a half working with BLM and national parks to get their full blessings and get them to sign off on it. And they're in the process of getting it published into their maps. And now the books are for sale again, because I've got supplement guides written that come with the books that now people can go do that route again. And then now it's 733 miles.
Wow. So as you were talking through, I kind of looked up on Google Maps just to make sure I'm aware of where all these landmarks are, because I've done Mojave Trail in whole once, and I did it not A to B but B to A, did it backwards, from Barstow out to Needles. But where all these other areas like Rocky Ridge and Fenner, it took me a minute to figure that out. So you did it all in a single shot. But there's probably not a bunch of folks who just can go knock all that out. But one of the things I liked about Mojave Road is that if you don't have time to do the whole thing at once, you can do it section by section. Does that still hold true for the EMHT?
Yeah, the EMHT, like I said, it's got 4 segments to it. And you can actually, if you map it out, you can actually do, say, 7/8 of segment 1 and then dip out and then finish, that would take you out at the 15 freeway. And then, you pick up at the 15 freeway the next time you want to go and you run segment 2 to Baker, and then you could dip out there. And right, it's got some easy points where you can cut it off, that may not align strictly to the 4 segments, but it's really easy to map it that way. And the fuel stops are pretty natural areas to do that in. So, it's very easily doable, but people who are shipping, their stuff over from Europe, because people come from all over the world to do Mojave Road, this is something that, you could do this thing in one shot. I would recommend taking more time than I did, but not as much time as Dennis recommends. He recommends 12 days. I did it in 6, but I wasn't trying to enjoy everything and explore everything, right? Because I'd been out there, it's my backyard, so I was trying to prove out a route. So I wasn't doing hikes and things like that. So if I was giving somebody a solid recommendation, I would say plan on 9 days. 2 days for each of segment 1, 2, and 4, and 3 days for segment 3, because that's the longest one. Okay.
Well, this is phenomenal. And I'm referencing an article that you have up on cal4wheel.com where you have some pictures from some of the different areas. And it's very familiar Mojave country, just kind of beautiful in its desolateness. But there's some other really cool pictures here. There's the cave. I have not been to this cave. I've been to the lava tubes, which is, a very interesting geographic thing. But this is definitely some stalactites, and this is a legit cave.
Yeah, that's Mitchell Caverns. So Mitchell Caverns had been closed for years, and it had only reopened the year before I redid the route. And you have to have a tour scheduled with a ranger. I think it's $10 a head to go in, and they guide you through it. It's a pretty sensitive site, and so they take care of it pretty well. But I highly recommend it. The route, some of the stuff that I did that differs from Dennis, and so when I talked to Dennis about it, right, because we spent a lot of time together with what I was doing, because I wanted to make sure he was going to give me his blessing, because Dennis is a pure desert rat, right? He's steering stuff away from pavement. He's staying out in the boonies as much as possible. And that's how the original EMHT runs. For me, though, because the desert area is cut off a lot of that, you're still plenty remote, don't get me wrong. Unless I was close to Mojave Road or near a refuel point, I didn't see another vehicle for 6 days. So, once you get out there, there is no help coming.
Right.
So, but for me, the name East Mojave Heritage Trail, it's about exploring and experiencing the heritage of everything that area brings in. And there's so much more to it than just the desert, right? There's the caverns, there's Hole in the Wall, there's Route 66, the town of Amboy, the iconic Roy's Route 66 sign in place, Amboy Crater. So, my girlfriend, she doesn't like to just ride in the Ave all day. She likes to, let's hike, let's get out and do stuff. So I kind of kept that stuff in mind and said, okay, when you're doing this route, there are areas to explore and examine and investigate. There's petroglyph sites. Those are not mentioned in any of my stuff. They're scrubbed from everything other than the original books, because they can't do anything about that. And that's just based on modern day sensitivity that national parks and BLM asked me to keep those kind of protected. But they're there, and it doesn't take much research to find them. But I brought in more of those things that are part of the Mojave heritage, because somebody, say, shipping their vehicle from Europe to the U.S. to do this route, it's going to be a shame for them to be 200 yards off of Route 66, but not drive Route 66. You know what I mean? So there's a portion of the route that I actually put them on Route 66 for a little bit to say you did it, kind of thing. So, you know, it's that kind of stuff that I brought in more of that element into the route, just because the reroutes put me into such close proximity to them, it would almost be criminal not to.
Oh, yeah.
And Dennis was fully on board with it. Dennis totally agreed and was nothing but supportive about it.
That is awesome. Yeah. So another one of the pictures that really caught my eye was the mine, where the pit down there at the bottom. You kind of get a sense of scale when you see the vehicles itty bitty tiny down in the corner. What mine is that? That's the Coliseum mine? That's
Coliseum mine. So that's right at the start of segment 2. And actually, once word got out that this was starting to get repopularized, the owners of Coliseum mine asked if I would not take the route down into the mine, because I originally put it down into there.
Yeah.
It was an amazing place to have lunch, right? Because you could be 110 degrees up at the top, you go down to the bottom, and it's 75, 80, and because you're down by the water, and there's reeds, and it's beautiful. And it's a really wide shelf road. So they supposedly, I haven't been back out there, but they supposedly have put in a gate at the top. So you can go to the top and look down, but they're discouraging people from driving down into it. And I don't know if maybe they had an issue with somebody or something. I don't know. They just asked, and it's their mine. So
yeah. I mean, it's 2021 right now. Liability for anything is right. The world being what it is, nobody wants to take risk on their own. Right. It's somebody else's fault.
It's an amazing, even just driving to the top of it. It is a stellar view.
Oh yeah, looks like it would be quite a hike if you were to walk the shelf road down to the bottom, even if you didn't drive. That's a haul.
Yeah, not horrible, but definitely going to be easier going down than coming back up.
Oh yeah. Oh, that is awesome. So you mentioned the books. I do not have a copy of the books, but now I'm, starting to scrounge around and figure out where I can get them. If somebody wants to learn and kind of get the GPS stuff for the Eastern Mojave Trail, where would they go to do that?
So there's several things that people will need to do this route justice, and I did it this way on purpose. So the original set of books, you would get from MDHCA.org, so Mojave Desert Heritage Cultural Association.org, so MDHCA. Those books are $30 a piece or $100 for the set of 4. Extremely limited supply because they only ever did one run of them. So I can tell you right now that there's probably somewhere around 150 complete sets remaining right now.
Oh, wow.
Now, a couple of months ago, there was 350 sets. So once they're gone, they're gone. So I'm going to be working, once I get settled in Idaho here, because I just relocated and I'm getting ready to go on the road for 3 weeks, explore around Arizona and then come back up. I need to get cracking on a second edition that Dennis and I were talking about. But right now, those books you can get, there's about 100 to 150 sets remaining. For anybody who already has book 1, there's more of book 2. For anybody who has book 2, there's more of book 3. And for anybody who has book 3, there's more of book 4, because what happened was people who originally started doing this, they bought one book at a time. And then as they went, wow, this is breaking me off, I'm not going to do 2 or 3 or 4. Because it will. Know what you're about. But when you order those books, my supplement guides that I wrote to make it compliant will come for free with the books.
Okay.
So they will send you a physical copy. If you already have the books, you can go on their website and download the supplement guides for free. I'm not making any money on this. This was Dennis's thing. I'm just trying to bring it back because it's the right thing to do for the desert. Get people off of Mojave Road and get them into other parts of the desert. As far as the digital route goes, you can go and download the map file from mdhca.org. If you are an Onyx subscriber, I'm a trail guide for them, so it is a featured route on Onyx. So that will actually come with trail guide information for each segment. So it'll show up if you zoom in on the Mojave Desert area. You're going to have a big blue and green line that goes straight across. That's Mojave Road. And then you're going to have this one that just like is this big massive loop all the way around it. And that's the EMHT. That's how you get all the information to go do the route.
Okay.
Now, you could go to Onyx, you could go to MDHCA and just download my map file and go run the route. And you would be on a compliant route, follow the line. But you're not going to know anything of what you're looking at.
Yeah, you're going to miss out on all the knowledge nuggets.
Well, and I did that on purpose, right? Because part of exploration is understanding.
Yeah.
And Dennis's books are full of so much history and so much knowledge of the area that it's like I did the route guides to force you to still use the book. Like I said, you could follow the pretty blue line on your GPS, but all you're going to be doing is trail riding. You're not going to understand anything of where you are or what you're doing.
Right.
And then you're going to drive right by every mailbox because if you don't know where they are, you're going to go right by them and never see them.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a mailbox. So similar to what he did on Mojave Road, there's a mailbox on every segment. The segment 4 mailbox was cut off, was down in wilderness land, and it has recently miraculously reappeared in a compliant area of segment 4. So the original mailbox is accessible again.
That's awesome. Well, foot traffic is allowed in wilderness areas. Maybe somebody hiked it out.
Maybe.
Who knows? Well, that's cool. And I'll make sure to have links to all of these inside the show notes for the episode here.
Yeah, and people can write on Facebook. I'm Billy Creech, although I'm sure there's a bunch on Instagram. I champion Jonathan Hansen's. He originally coined the phrase fractal exploration, which is right. You're breaking the world up into smaller chunks and investigating them more closely. So with his blessing, I champion that. So on Instagram, I'm fractal.exploration, and anybody can ping me, and I'm more than happy to help provide info, guidance, whatever.
Very cool. Well, I'll open it up here to Craig and Rich, see if they had any questions about something maybe I skipped over.
I just have one. What's the best time of the year to run the trail?
Fall. October to December. Then I would say again, your normal desert seasons, you start shying away when you get into mid-late April and kind of back off on the hotter months. I don't know if Dennis did this on purpose or if he's right, because if he did, he's a sadistic individual. But the EMHT is the most cross-grained route you can possibly imagine. Of the 733 miles, for probably 650 of them, you are cross-grained. So you're just perpendicular to the ruts.
Yeah, I was going to say, that may not mean a lot to somebody who hasn't done a lot of exploration out in the desert, but it is like running across corduroy the wrong direction, but not like corrugated roads or washboard roads. These are like big undulating terrain.
Yeah, it's not something you can get a harmonic and run smoothly over.
Yeah.
But to your point about the best time of the year, one of the things, well, there's several things about the MHT, but you spend an inordinate amount of time in washes. You're either on an alluvial or you're in a wash 85 to 90% of the time. And several of those washes, once you get into them, you can't get out for 10, 12, 40 miles. And so you really, really have to keep an eye on weather and know what's going on within 150 miles of you, because if it flashes, there are points where you cannot get out. So it's not a route that you can slack off on. It's I would say if we broke it down by segment, segment 1 is going to have some of the most technical stuff because it's got some really decent off-camber climbs and drops. And so those I kind of routed around simply because I thought a beginning novice type driver might get themselves into some serious trouble. And there's nobody coming out there, and there was kind of a nice graded workaround not far away. But the more technical route is compliant. and it's only an extra couple of miles. So like I said, if anybody wanted to contact me and go, hey, this is who I am, I know what I'm about, I'd like to try that, I'll more than happily tell them where it is. But for the general masses, I was like, we'll keep it to something that's a little more sane. Each of the routes has areas that will break you off. I mean, I ripped the shocks off my truck in starting segment 3, and again about halfway through segment 4. I mean, literally, and I have an onboard welder, so we welded it back together. But I literally finished the route with 2 functioning shocks on my truck.
That sounds
Billy,
like a good time.
Tell me about your avalanche.
The one that I did on the route, I destroyed in October after doing the route in an accident. So that was Tano 3.
A non-off-roading related accident?
Yes.
See, the moral of the story is just never drive on pavement then.
Exactly, yeah. 50,000 miles of dirt on that truck and destroyed it on the 215 freeway.
Oh, jeez.
So my avalanche, people ask all the time, why an avalanche? And, the smart aleck answer would be, well, why not? But it's what I had, and it was paid for. It was 12 years old because I bought it brand new, and I knew everything about the truck. And so a friend of mine that we've known each other since we were 4, he was that kid in the neighborhood that I think for his 5th birthday I got him a soldering iron because he was the guy that could fix anything and would. And so he's a fabricator and a suspension guy. His name's Brent Boggs. He designs suspension. He's got his own fab company called BB Fab Works in Rancho Cucamonga. And again, if somebody wants to get a hold of Brent to have some work done, ping me on Instagram, and I'll more than happily give you his phone number. I don't know what his social media presence is, but Brent, when we were 10, borrowed my bike and got it stolen. And so, he owes me. So I called him and said, hey, dude, time to pay up. And so essentially everything I could dream up with what I wanted to do, he made it happen. From everything on an avalanche, you can't go buy really anything. So all the bumpers, sliders, everything are all custom fabbed. Racks, tent rack, everything is custom fabbed. I learned a very painful, expensive lesson about buying cheap gear versus buying expedition grade gear. So ultimately, I ended up buying expedition grade gear. And the Av is an 02, and it's got if we just kind of go front to back on it, it's got from a recovery perspective, it's got a worn Xeon 12S winch with a Spydura rope and a Factor 55 flat length, and all custom bumper angles, all that stuff. It's got RCV performance angles, 488 gears, Cognito upper control arms with customized Fox suspension, and RCV performance axles. The engine, because it's California, you can't do a whole lot, but it's essentially tuned, and I've done stuff to it to make it behave more like a diesel. So normally a 5.3 will make peak horsepower and torque at 4,600 RPMs. Mine does it at 2,200. So it acts a lot more like a diesel. And so I've got a lot of torque down low. Yeah. The transmission is all aftermarket because the 4L60 is an issue. So that's all been gutted and redone. The rear diff is trussed. It's 48 with an ARB locker, G2 axles. And again, it's got Hummer springs in it. And so the truck sits, everybody asks me, what lift kit do you have? And I don't have one because I couldn't find anybody who made one that they would stand behind for really remote off-road exploration. They'll make you one all day long to drive on the streets. They'll make you one all day long to do trails. But when you say, hey, I'm going to be 500 miles out in the middle of nowhere, and if your family was in the vehicle, would you buy your own kit? And the answer was no, I would not.
Oh, geez.
So what we did was we did it all with components, right? Custom trailing arms, custom everything, custom fab track bar, everything. And my truck sits on 35s without a lift kit.
Wow.
So, everybody's like, you can't do that. You got to have a 6-inch lift. I'm like, well, it's right there.
Yeah.
There it is. And it does just fine, and it doesn't rub.
And you said you're using Hummer springs?
Yes.
From, not a Humvee, just like an H2 Hummer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from an H2.
Got it.
So they're substantially bigger than a Z71 spring, and they're progressive. So, because my truck, it tips the scale fully loaded, is 8,100. And so, the frame has all been plated. It's got bigger brakes on it. It's got 07 front brakes. It's got all aftermarket stuff. It's got stronger wheels. It's got Method 701s on it. The General Tire, the Grabber X3s. And so I've done everything I can do to make that truck handle the weight. Probably more so than I would really need to, but it does really well. And she's a big old gal, but she's all right.
How do you like those Method wheels? That's been on my wish list for a long time. Ever since they came out.
I love them. The bead grip. I've had them down to 14 psi in sand dunes in Oregon, and didn't slip a bead. Nothing. The combination of that wheel with the Grabber X3 tire, right? Because that's got the thickest sidewall and the thickest bead on the market. So you combine that with the bead grip, and that bead should not go anywhere.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's kind of why I mated those two together. From a performance perspective, they're great. I've cracked other wheels. I've never cracked one of these. Even in the impact on my black truck, 4 of the wheels on my current truck are from the black one. Everything survived the crash on the black one except for the front bumper and the truck itself, the frame. Everything else is on this white truck.
Okay, so you're able to kind of harvest all the parts and move it from one truck to the other?
Which is why I did another Avalanche.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, the first one was a fortune by the time you get done fabbing everything and sourcing everything. This one is, I already had it all. So really all I had to do was take the new one, put everything into it. And honestly, the only stuff that's left on the white truck, because I bought another 02, the only thing left that's from the original truck is the body, the frame, the engine, the radiator, the computer, and the glass. Everything else is from my black truck.
Okay.
The rare parts, anybody who has a Chevy that does this, Rare Parts makes a tie rod. The Chevy tie rods, factory ones, are really anemic. They're about a half an inch thick, and the Rare Parts ones are 1.25 inches. So not a sleeve, not a screw on, but an actual tie rod. So you just replace the whole thing, and it becomes bomb proof. They didn't bend. None of my stuff bent in that accident. And I took the hit on the left front, and I could have reused the Method wheel that was on the left front. It just had a divot out of it. Didn't crack, didn't bend. I had it spun. It wasn't bent. I could have used it just with a little bit of side cleanup. And I was like, nah, I'm just going to go ahead and replace that one just because. But that sucker, I could have kept rolling. I was more than impressed with it.
That's awesome.
I would have at least kept it for a spare.
Well, I already had my spare, but we were moving to Idaho recently. I had it up until just a month ago. And
a spare for a spare.
Yeah, I had it up until a month ago.
The parts truck.
The move to Idaho, it kind of became okay. What's got to go. I ended up having to leave my lawnmower and chainsaw behind too. So. Oh
man.
The tore up spare wasn't going to make the cut.
Very cool.
But the Av, it's a great truck. I've got Shillman seats in it, which are amazing. They're super expensive, so people, when you look at them, they're sticker shock. But they are one of the best things I've ever spent money on, because you do spend money on them. But they're an orthopedic seat. They adjust to your femur length. They adjust to your hip. They adjust, the lumbar support in the back. Not only adjusts how much pressure you get, but where it hits you on your back. So they're completely personalized seats. You can just sit there and just dial them into you, and to the point where I've driven before for 17 hours in that truck and got out and didn't feel like I'd ever even been driving.
Yeah.
What kind of seats are these?
The Shillman.
Shillman. So
yep.
SCHEEL-MANN. And I think their website is shillmanusa.com, but they're an amazing seat. right? And if you're ordering them, right, because they'll custom make anything. You can pick thread color, fabric type, the whole deal. But they are really, really a solid piece of kit that as much time as you spend in your vehicle, right? Your butt's in that seat 100% of the time. So nobody thinks twice about spending $1,200 for a winch that you might use, a couple times a year. But everybody balks at wanting to spend $1,200 on a seat that you're in 100% of the time.
Yeah, I never understood that.
The arm and the leg.
The seats in my Jeep Cherokee were starting to break down, within months of buying it. And I bought it used, but I scooped up a pair of Corbeau seats on Craigslist, and holy moly, one of the best upgrades I have done.
Right.
I was an idiot not to do it immediately.
Yeah, well, I tell you, so all of this stuff was in my, right, the sliders are welded into the frame, and the roof rack is steel, all this stuff. So all of this stuff was in my black truck. And when I got in that accident, it was a 45, 50 mile an hour impact. And my truck was destroyed. And the paramedics thought that when they arrived, they didn't believe me that I was driving the Avalanche because they thought they were dispatched to a fatal. And I didn't even get sore. I mean, the whole front of the truck was collapsed. The roof was caved in above me. The roof rack didn't bend, just the roof. But
that's a good rack.
Inside with my sliders welded in, and the seats and the seat belts and everything, I didn't move, and the cab did not change shape at all.
Wow.
So I didn't even get sore. So, it well built. I called Brent immediately because I was actually on my way to his house to do some suspension fixes, and I called him and was like, dude, all your work saved my life. So it's good stuff, and you might like this. I mean, your listeners might not, but you, because you're in the Army, you might like this. So my trucks have names. So my first truck was TN03, and my current one is TN04. Obvious reasons, right? Succession.
Sure.
But the name comes from, so a lot of people question me, oh my God, you're not in a Toyota, you're not in a Jeep, you're not in a Land Rover, right? Why are you out there in the desert in a Chevy? And it's like, do you even understand the desert heritage of a Chevy, right? So in World War II, when the Italians and Germans took over North Africa, there was a British desert explorer, Ralph Bagnall, who said, hey, if you want to deal with these guys, let's form a desert group that will essentially raid from areas of the desert that these guys are afraid to go in, right? Crossing the Libyan and Sahara deserts. And we're essentially going to commit high piracy on these guys. And so they formed, it was originally called the Long Range Patrol, LRP. And then it became the LRDG, Long Range Desert Group. And it was originally manned by New Zealanders.
Yep.
And these guys, they were the original, this is the forerunner to all special forces, right? These guys are the precursor. They're the long hair, beards, in fact, they bearded brigands. But they were equipped with, they had a Jeep here and there, but by and large, because the Jeeps didn't come in until 43, but they had their main gun truck platforms were Chevy trucks. And they equipped them with aircraft guns. So
yeah.
Vickers and Browning 303s and 50s and Breda cannons and things like that. And they literally would be in a line, 17 vehicles long, and they would appear out of the darkness and just broadside the enemy, right? They navigated the desert like they did an ocean. They used ocean navigation techniques. Ralph Bagnall invented a sun compass that they could navigate with, and they used theodolite and sextants to navigate barren open desert for 2,000 miles to hit these dudes from areas that they didn't expect. And then they disappear back into the desert. And they essentially became known by the Italians as Pattuglia Fantasma, the Ghost Patrol. And they were scared to death of them because these guys were like, this is not what you expect of a soldier that you're doing battle with. These guys,
right.
Long hair, beards, appearing out of nowhere, just opening fire without warning and then disappearing. It's just like they didn't even stay to collect the bounty. They just disappeared. And so they were kind of the precursors to the hit and run tactic. And they started escorting the SAS and things like that on missions in the desert. And they did a lot of recon, a lot of intel gathering. But the New Zealanders, right, they named their vehicles. And they used, so T Patrol, all the names started with a T. So Te Aurora, Te Ano, right, things like that. And the Te Ano 2 truck, they were on probably their most famous raid, the Bark Raid, part of Operation Caravan. And they hammered an Italian airbase. And they, 1,800 kilometers across the desert to hit this airbase. And the Italians were actually expecting them. So out of all the vehicles that saw combat in that raid, Te Ano 2 was the only Chevy truck, was the only vehicle that survived it. And got the guys 925 kilometers safely back to a base where they could get help. And so, right, she was always faithful, always reliable, and brought them home. And the day that it brought them back to that base, my birthday was the 25th anniversary of that. So that's my trucks have run the Te Ano.
Wow.
So I carried on with 3, and now my white truck is 4. So that's where the name comes from, and I run their Kiwi Signia for T Patrol is on the right-hand side of my hood, and the Te Ano is on the left.
That is awesome. I'm going to have a link here to the... there's a Wikipedia entry about the Long Range Desert Group that has tons of great details, and it shows pictures of the old Chevy, what was it, the C30?
Yeah.
Like, you can see exactly what you're talking about.
The CWT-30 truck.
Yep. Yeah,
the CWT-30. The Brendan O'Carroll, he's just had a new book come out in December that's Long Range Desert Group in Action, and it's images of war. And so it's a lot of... He's one of the foremost historians on these guys, and he actually went and met with as many of the family members as he possibly could, surviving members over the years, and other people who had written books. And so this book is actually full of not the professional military photos that you see that are polished and everything else, but it's full of these guys' personal camera photos.
Oh, those are the best ones.
Very, very cool. Yeah, it's a stellar book. I actually just finished it a week ago. It's amazing. That book is a great read.
What was the name of the book?
The Long Range Desert Group in Action, 1940 to 1943.
I'm going to have to see if I can find this one. Otherwise, next time I'm in Idaho, I'll just...
Carroll.
If I can't find it, next time I'm in Idaho, I'll just swing by your house.
Yeah. I actually had pinged him this morning because there was a question I had. One of the guys that was in the LRDG that's photographed a lot, and he wrote a book after the war. He was a navigator, and he kept referring to these one trucks as whites, and I thought maybe he was referring because these guys painted their vehicles crazy colors, right? So T Patrol, they were kind of a light sand. A lot of the trucks were bright pink, just super, think of a clown car.
Yeah.
With green and blue and yellow on them. And people were like, oh my God, you're going to combat with that? Are you kidding me? Well, you spend enough time in the desert, sunrise and sunset, what color's the ground?
Yeah, those are the colors.
Pink.
Yep.
It's pink. And those were the most active times for enemy air patrols, that they would be spotted from the air. So they painted their vehicles pink to completely disappear in the desert in the sunrise and sunset. And so, these guys were really creative. They were the first guys that were pretty much outside of regimental standard. They were stripping weapons and manufacturing mounts, right? These guys, one Vickers machine gun from an aircraft was not good enough. They welded 2 of them together and mounted them.
If one's good, 2 is even better.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But I mean, these guys were like, the condenser tank in a vehicle today, right? The expansion tank. These guys are the guys that invented that. They created a condenser tank to recapture the steamed off water out of the radiator so they didn't waste the water. That's where that whole thing comes from, is the LRDG.
Wow.
And just completely, they invented lowering air pressures in the tires. They invented dune driving and keeping up momentum. And they were the guys originally carrying the sand ladders. Yeah, I mean, if you start looking at these guys, they were the original desert, just getting deep and doing things that nobody ever thought was possible. And that's why they were so successful. And so, you know, my truck, I'm in a Chevy. People are like, why a Chevy? It's not possible.
There you
she
go.
always brings me home. She always keeps me safe, and she always gets it done. So, you know, that's the heritage.
Yeah, that is
That's her namesake.
a perfect homage to everything. You just need, you know, some mounted machine guns, and you'll be good to go.
You know, I moved to Idaho for a reason.
It would never happen in California. Idaho, you can definitely get away with it.
They frowned on that sort of thing, but yeah, it's very cool. And I have people ask me all the time about the name on the tractor, or I run the, you know, Tano was predominantly T6. There were some times that the original was a T10, but for the most part, it was a T6 truck. And so I run the T6 moniker on the back panels and stuff like that. So she's got her markings.
Man, awesome. All right, Billy, I don't want to take up too much more of your evening, but if somebody wants to learn more...
Talk about.
Oh, I know. Well, so that's the problem, is we could probably sit around and talk forever. But if somebody wants to learn more about the Eastern Mojave Heritage Trail, let me make sure I get this right. The place to go is mdhca.org, Mojave Desert Heritage Cultural Association. And if they can't figure that out, then is Instagram kind of the best place to probably find you?
Yeah, just simply because there's a lot of Bill and Billy Creeches on Facebook.
Okay. And that is fractal.exploration.
FRACTAL.exploration. Yep, that's me.
Awesome.
The one thing I would like to impart on people is none of what we're doing, what you're doing, what I'm doing out in the Mojave Desert is possible without Dennis Casebeer, right? That guy dedicated his entire adult life to the Mojave Desert. Have you been out to Goss yet?
Not yet. It is on my list of things to do before I move out here in the next few months.
Okay, so if you want to go out there, let me know. I'll put you in touch with Laura, who's the executive director out there, and have her show you the archives and give you a tour of the place. It's the Dennis Casebeer Library. It's the single largest collection of Mojave Desert history on the planet.
Really?
And yes. And there's so much that's there that you don't even know. I mean, Dennis literally went out and met with the original pioneers. These people are all dead and gone now. But he met with them, and he had bought I'm going to get the name wrong, transcriber, whatever, but the ability to stop and start a conversation, recording. And he did recordings of all of the interviews with these people. So you have their words in this place for research. And it's just a phenomenal amount of history that's out there. I mean, people don't even know that, right? Some of the earliest homesteaders in the Mojave were African-American. Huge African-American community that settled out there. And people talk about cultural sensitivity and wanting to understand history. Nobody even thinks about connecting those two dots.
Yeah.
But Dennis did. And he did all this stuff, and his friends, Larry Vredenberg, John Marnell, all these guys, Dick McPherson, who built the mailboxes. He called me the other day, and he was like, hey, and he lives in Riverside. So ironically, I just moved away from there. He's like, I heard that the fourth mailbox showed up. I was like, yeah, it did. So, these guys did all of us future explorers a huge service, and can't thank them enough. And Dennis is really getting on in age. He's almost 87. He's not in good health. And, any thanks, any appreciation means a lot to him.
Well, I would love to send him a thank you note.
MDHCA, right?
That's the place to go.
His daughter's on the board there. Any message that goes in there, any notes, anything for him gets to him.
Okay.
So, and then do yourself a favor, man. Get out to Goss. And if you're doing the EMHT, Goss is actually on segment 1. So, if you're doing that, that's pretty much your first stopping point is the Goff Schoolhouse and the whole site there.
Okay.
Local mining equipment and just a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, anybody who does that route, just know what you're about, because you do get really remote. You're going to get into every terrain you can imagine. Lava rock, hard pack, deep sand, washes, hill climbs, descents, drop-offs. You're going to get it all. You're either go invest in some protection for your paint or just divorce yourself from your paint job.
Just give it up.
It's going to be severely straight, which is good. Every exploration vehicle should be, So, but there are some products out there, I guess, that keep them looking pretty. Mine, I like people to know that mine gets used.
Sure.
So
I get that.
Most of it buffs out anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Either that or bed liner.
Well, there's that. In fact, I actually at the grocery store yesterday, I parked next to a Jeep that the entire thing was bed lined. Like even the light bar brackets were bed lined. It's like they just covered the windows and then sprayed the whole thing.
Yeah. That's probably exactly what happened.
It's not going to get scratched.
Yep.
But I mean, as I looked at it,
it's not going to rust.
Like, even the bolts were bed lined. I was like, that might be a challenge later.
Wow. As long as you never intend to do any maintenance, you're good to go.
No, but hey, they shouldn't back out, right?
That's true.
Yeah, definitely not going to come loose.
No, but it was like, hey, that's a kind of a novel approach, do it that way. So mine, that's, people either love or hate the plastic on the Avalanche, right? And mine has
the chalky gray.
My response is, but you know what? So this one, I bought it. It was already, 18 years old when I bought it, and in great shape. But my other one I bought brand new, and it's the only brand new vehicle I had ever purchased for myself. So I had that thing for 18 years, and it never had a single door ding. I mean, that right there is in Southern California. That's a testament to how good that plastic really is, because no door dings in 18 years. So,
that is impressive.
Me, those things are golden.
No, it's just, the problem is somebody looked at it and went, "Oh my God, if I hit that, the guy's going to kill me."
Well, there is that. I did, you get the stories of Idahoans, I don't know how you call them, Idahoans, not liking Californians, right? And they're like, "Oh my God, change your plates as fast as possible," because my plate is a black California plate that says Fractal X on it. And I had gotten on a Facebook page for a neighborhood that we were moving into, and introduced ourselves, and I posted a picture of our truck. Said, "Hey, if you see us, we have a pretty distinctive vehicle. Say hi." And lady instantly pops up. She goes, "Saw your truck at the grocery store today. My son looked at the plate and said he's from California, but that truck, he belongs in Idaho."
You're gonna fit right in,
right? But it's again, the Av, for any of your listeners who have one, don't let people tell you can't do anything with it, because you can. There are parts available. You can ping me to ask, and I'll tell you which parts I use. I'm not sponsored by them, so it's what works.
Yeah.
But,
hey, we've said it before. We had a somebody send in us an email on asking us, "Oh, well, can I use this type of vehicle?" We all said, use whatever you got. Whatever you like, you can build it to whatever you need. And I went to the Expo show down in Costa Mesa last year, towards the end of 2019, I think it was. And I went to one of the shows, and they had the new Subarus they had stuff for the new Subarus.
Oh yeah.
I was just like,
right.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was like, this is cool.
Yeah. But if when you sit and you look at when you because I've got friends who live in their vehicles, right? They are the true overlander, right? They my buddy Graham, he's raised a family of 4 in a Land Rover for the last 10 years, traveling the world, and so they're legit, right? They're that's their home, that's their life. And when you look at guys like him and Dan and some other folks that travel long term and explore long term, when you look at the issues that they try to solve with their vehicle, right? It's secured storage. It's through access. It's all these kinds of things. Well, when you stop and you look at the Avalanche, it solves that. It's got saddlebags. It's lock. It's got a secured bed cover that locks that bed in place. You drop the midgate down, you've got through cab access. So that's what I did when I sat down and started reading about this stuff and started looking at it, and I started looking at my truck in a whole new light. I went, well, how come nobody's using one of these? And then everybody will go, oh my God, it's so massive, it's so this, it's so that. And then in the same breath, they go, Land Rover Defender 130 is so cool. And I'm like, it's the exact same size, 130-inch wheelbase. It's the exact same size.
Yep.
So, I would tell people, use what you have, use what you're comfortable with, get out there, be smart about it. If you can do a project or something, do some research, right? So for me, when I did the EMHT, part of getting BLM on board was I did some projects for national parks and BLM. And so I'm a member of the Explorers Club, right? Scientific exploration and furthering human knowledge, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of good you can do you're going out there. They don't have the resources to be out there all the time. So pick up the phone and call them and go, hey, I'm going to go do this route. Is there anything that you would like me to check on or look out for while I'm out there? Right. So I was checking on the conditions of petroglyphs and pictographs, desert tortoise, because I was in areas that nobody had been in for 30 years. So, how many are you coming across? How big are they? Document them. And Mylar balloons, because there was a really cool project because the Mylar balloons, they don't degrade. And so they blow a long distance. They land in the desert. They're shiny. The desert tortoises eat them and die. So, I picked up, I think, 6 of those and then mapped their coordinates, sent those in because there's a bigger project where they're taking the coordinates of the balloons and matching those to prevailing wind conditions to figure out where the balloons came from, because they have very limited educational resources. So they're targeting the resources at the most likely origin points for those balloons to say, don't use these things. You're actually killing the tortoises. So
yeah,
and watch it comes out and finds out it's his college that has been the college he went to is the one that's been setting these balloons off.
Well, that's in the opposite direction. Cornell's nowhere near Mojave.
Yeah, but that would be the funny. It ends up being Cornell.
Oh man,
I would have to make a phone call on that one and go stop it. But,
yeah.
But everybody. You don't have to be somebody special to get a hold of a project, to conceive a project, and then pick up the phone and call BLM. If somebody's afraid or unsure, they can ping me, and I can steer them to the right person, right? That's in the area that could give them advice and give them some, yeah, sure. Hey, we would love some help to look at that, because they just, the reality of the world is it's a huge area. It's a massive amount of land, and they don't have the resources to keep their eyes on all of it. So people who are out there trying to do good could really help out.
Yeah. Billy, this has been one of the most fascinating interviews and educational that we've had in a very long time. So this is going to be awesome. I really appreciate your time.
Sure.
For sure, if you're ever back down in the area, let me know so we can try and get together. Otherwise, I will eventually be making my way back through Idaho, and I will find you and maybe lead you into some of my old stomping grounds.
There you go. Well, yeah, I've got a speed run coming up. I'm headed for Arizona for 3 weeks, and then I'll be back up here. And then I think in April I'm planning on coming back down to Riverside for like a week.
Okay.
And then heading back up. I have to come get my cat.
You are still fully in the moving process, it sounds like.
Oh, we don't have our house yet.
So
it's not going to be done until like March 9th. So we are staying literally this is where, attention to detail. So I didn't do this. My girlfriend Michelle did this. It's so crazy up here with people moving up here that she found this Airbnb that was this really cute cottage on a farm property. It's like $1,500 a month. I'm like, rent it, get it, because it was available for the 5 weeks that we wanted, because our original plan was 5 weeks and then 6 months travel exploring the U.S. And then our house would be ready in June and we'd come back. So I'm planning out, Florida and dry tortugas, and I'm like going hog wild. We're going to be, booking it for 6 months. And somebody rented the Airbnb before she got it. So then she went into panic mode, and she jumps in and she starts reading the description of this other Airbnb house and looks at the pictures and gets enthralled and just commits, bang, and didn't read the rest of the description until like literally 2 days we were coming here. And she's texting with the owner of the Airbnb saying, okay, so what's the code? What's the Wi-Fi code? And they're like, well, you know that we live here, right? That you just rented 2 bedrooms.
Fine print.
For 5 weeks. Wait, what? and they have a 2-year-old. So we've been here for a month, and it's been great. You know, they're awesome. We made it work, right? Because my big thing, I tell people all the time, if you look at my current post on Instagram, right? It's Sabrina, the girl pumping gas in Oregon, is my best thing I love about exploring, in addition to seeing things that most people don't get to see, is meeting people. What's their story? You know, how did you get here, right? You're in Ballarat and Death Valley. How did you end up living here, of all places, right?
Yeah.
Right? And so I just like to meet people and do that. So I'm like, well, I'll put my money where my mouth is, and we're going to meet these folks.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
You're really going to get to know them good.
We have. And it's been great, but we're bouncing out of here Saturday, and then we're actually coming back to this same place in 3 weeks, and we'll stay here until our house is done in a couple more weeks. So
that's awesome.
You know, we already know the routine. You know, the little guy loves us, and it's all good. So, you know, we made some new friends.
That's awesome. All right, Craig, Rich, is there anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good. We're at an hour and 15 minutes. It's
Yeah, this is an episode all on its own.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Well, Billy,
go for like 2 hours.
Yeah, I know it. If we had started early, we probably could have. But well, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
Hey, tons of fun. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for making it easy. And anytime you want to have me back, I'm more than game.
Sounds great. All right, we'll talk to you later. All right, Artemis Overland Hardware is a local family-run business that supplies your adventures. They have a brick-and-mortar store located in Springfield, Missouri, where you can come in and browse a huge selection of equipment. And when I say it's huge, I mean it's huge. I'm going to read through a lot of brands here, so get ready. Artemis Overland Hardware has a huge chunk of the catalog available from OzTent, 23-0, Easyon, Snowmaster Fridges, and one of our personal favorites, Timbo Tusk, also Covia, Frontrunner, Alucab, iCamper, Come Up Winches, Factor 55, Crazy Beaver Tools, National Luna, Red Arc, Ironman 4x4, and Goose Gear. Now, this isn't just a long list of reputable brands. Artemis Overland Hardware is all about building relationships. That's why they want you to come into the store and meet you and let you see everything in person. Your satisfaction is only able to be guaranteed because of the relationship and trust that's been fostered between Artemis Overland Hardware and all these brands. If you have any questions about anything that Artemis Overland Hardware carries, then don't hesitate to call or message Aaron and his team. Check out ArtemisOverland.com and get ready and equipped for all your adventures wherever they may take you. That's ArtemisOverland.com, ARTEMIS Overland.com. Check them out, hit them up on social media, and say thanks for their continued partnership with the 4x4 podcast. Tonight, I have Chris Holloway, who is organizing the MORE. Is that the right acronym? What's the event that we're doing?
MORE Expo.
Okay.
Yeah, Midwest Overland Off-Road Expo.
Awesome. And can you tell me a little bit about this event? I know it's right on top of us, so people are going to hear this podcast, and the event's going to be happening, and there's probably some that are going to listen to it after the event, but tell me a little bit about the event here. I was reading the website earlier.
Yeah. So we're in our second year, and the Midwest really needed an overlanding consumer show. I was struggling to get a chance to actually be able to see, touch, and feel the products that I wanted. If I wanted a rooftop tent, I had to buy one online and hope and pray that it was what I wanted when I got it.
It's a lot of money to spend on something that, you haven't actually seen or anything.
Oh, yeah. And, there's so many of them on the market, and it's so hard to not be able to go look at this stuff. Now, coming into it a couple years in, there's some more stores that are starting to pop up, which is great. But, I wanted to look at certain recovery gear before I bought it. And everything, for the past 20 years has been buy it online or, buy it over the phone or out of a catalog and hope that you like it when you get it.
Yeah, hope it works out.
Don't. So it just seemed like everything was perfect to create a consumer show and bring vendors in from all over the United States that have these products that we can actually see, and that's what we did, and it's fantastic. This is the second year we've doubled in size and really grown. It's an adventurer's adventure show is what it is. It's awesome. We're loving it.
So we've talked about on the podcast, or at least mentioned before, like the Overland Expo West and Overland Expo East, where there's not just a ton of vendors there, but there's some classes. Is that something that is going to be the same for the Midwest Overland Expo?
It is. Yeah. So we've got a different course / seminar every hour on the hour. So I think there are 14 total show hours that are happening. And we've got a full schedule. It's on the website. It's in the Learn/Courses tab. But we've got Switchback Outdoor Safety is sponsoring it, and they're doing several classes. First aid kits. There are recovery courses. There are radio communications courses. How to escape and evade illegal detention, some really cool kind of international travel stuff, and then we're also doing a proctored ham radio testing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the local ham radio club or amateur radio club has come in, and we've got them set up in a room. They've set it all up for us. We made the announcement a few weeks ago to let everybody know, hey, if you want to come in and take the test, go ahead and do your studying and all that stuff, and you can come in and knock out the test.
That's really cool.
Right there at the expo, so that's really cool too, yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, there's tons of classes there, and like what you mentioned before, the ability to see and touch things, like that's one of the nice things. Like our title sponsor here on the podcast is the Artemis Overland Hardware, and I believe they're one of your sponsors as well, and it fits right in. Like the ability to see.
They are our title sponsor as well. Yeah. We love Aaron, and he's one of the stores that you can actually go in year round and go see this stuff. He's at any given time he's got 8 rooftop tents of different flavors set up in the shop.
Yeah.
And if you go in on Friday, then they'll cook you lunch.
Yeah, I know. I see him posting that on Instagram, and it kills me. Like, I wish I could just pop on over and get some of that delicious food he's cooking up and serving.
I know. Yeah, so Aaron and I actually, when I first coined the idea for this expo, I set up a mini version of it in a boat show. And I needed stuff to fill it. I needed camp chairs and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I called Aaron and I said, man, I have this crazy idea. We're going to do a Midwest. And I didn't even know him at the time. I said, we're going to do this Midwest Expo for the Midwest community. And I need to borrow a ton of camping gear and stuff. And he just, Aaron, he's just such a great guy. He probably thought I was crazy, but showed up with a pickup truck full of stuff for me. And then I got in touch with X-Venture Trailers, and they were nice enough to drive all the way down from Wisconsin.
Wow.
And put a trailer in. So here we were in this little boat show, set up with our overlanding setup with the rooftop tent, and it was really cool. And, people just thought it was neat as could be, and that's where we got started. But yeah, Aaron and I, we go back to the roots of it.
That's awesome. Well, I just came off the heels of attending the King of the Hammers out here in Southern California, and getting into that kind of event, it came with some challenges, but this is California, and the standard for things is a little bit different. It's not the same nationwide, So, what all does somebody have to do in order to actually attend the Midwest Off-Road Expo here?
Yeah. So we've got a full COVID policy online, and we pretty much took our directive directly from the city.
Okay.
Whatever their rules were are our rules. It's hard to have an event in this day and age. We're very lucky to have it.
Yeah.
And anything that the city or the CDC has asked us to do, we will do, and we'll try to do at 110% for them. Just because we are so grateful that we're able to have this event.
Yeah.
So coming into the show, masks are required. We've got temperature check at the door, so we'll check temperature with a contactless form of laser checking, and then masks are required throughout the show. All of our exhibitors are required to have a hand sanitizer station for every booth, and then if it's a floor space, a larger spot, one bottle of hand sanitizer for every 400 square feet of their booth space. So some, 4 or 5 hand sanitizer bottles, so you can, make sure that you're keeping clean. And we've got a limited capacity in the building. We're allowed 1,760 people in the building at a time, which should be fine for the flow, anyways. But we limit that, and that's an equation set forth by the city to guarantee that at any given time anybody can distance themselves if they feel they need to 6 feet. So
gotcha.
We're following all the guidelines and keeping everybody safe there, vendors, my staff, and our attendees.
Nice. Well, so what does it cost to get in there?
Admission is $20, and that gets you into all the classes and courses that you want to attend.
Oh, really?
Yep. Oh, yeah. We don't charge.
Wow, that's a phenomenal deal.
Yeah, it really is. And the $20 admission also gets you in both days. So you can come in Saturday and Sunday with a wristband for the same price.
That's awesome.
You
get a chance to look at all the vendors. Looks like you have over 100 vendors listed here, and you'll still be able to do some of those classes.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We're we got a ton of exhibitors coming in from all over the United States. I'm having a blast right now watching the Instagram stories of people driving in from New Mexico and Miami, Florida, and Virginia.
Wow.
Michigan. There's a whole convoy coming down from Michigan, the Core to More convoy, which is cool. Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, I know I won't be able to attend, but I am on Instagram. I'm active there. Is there a specific hashtag somebody should be looking for if they want to kind of follow along virtually?
You can follow along on the hashtag MoreExpo or hashtag MoreExpo21. But I think it seems like the best way to follow along with what we've been doing is through the MoreExpo Instagram page stories. I've been having a blast with that, and anybody that tags us in any story related to the expo, we're sharing them. So not only will you see my shenanigans as I'm setting up and looking silly on the camera, but you'll see everybody else's as they're making trips. And I'm having fun watching a gentleman from out west come in. I think he's on his 6th gas stop now.
Oh my word.
And came in from much warmer climates to come out here to the ice storm with us.
Yeah, from the sound of things, your area of the country is getting hammered by all kinds of weather.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit south of us.
Okay.
So I'm in Springfield now. I come down a few days ahead of the event, obviously, to get everything taken care of. But we've got some ice on the roads and some ice on the cars, and it's definitely cold. But the majority of the storm is a bit southeast of us, and working its way east. So,
gotcha.
It looks like it's gonna miss us.
Well, it's a good thing. It's an indoor event then.
Yeah, it's an indoor event. So the only time that you'll be cold is waiting to get inside. So I don't anticipate the lines being very long for a long time. My staff is incredibly efficient, and we've got two lines coming into the building, so we'll be able to move people right in.
That's awesome. All right, so the event is February 13th and 14th in Springfield, Missouri, and you just correct me if I get anything wrong or if I miss it, but the website is mooreexpo.com, and that's MOORE expo.com. And then they prepaid for tickets, or you just get them at the door? Is that easy?
Either one. If you prepay and buy your tickets in advance, you can hopefully that line will move a bit faster. So we've got the prepaid convenience line where you just scan your ticket and you're good. And then there'll be a cash only line as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I'm a little bummed. I know for Rich, he was there at the event last year, but he's unable to make it this year. So all of the 4x4 podcast team will be following along virtually. And sometime I want to get you back on the show, Chris, and see, what all you've got going on here, because it looks like you got a pretty nice, is that a Jeep here in the picture here?
Yeah, I've got a Wrangler Rubicon that I've been building for 4 or 5 years now. Kind of put my heart and soul into it and built it over time. And then got a new rig that is in the process of being built right now for the show. Let's see. I think 20 days ago, I pulled the trigger on a bone stock Lexus GX 470 at Adventure Motors, like bone stock.
Yeah.
And at this point today, it's completely decked out.
That's awesome.
Red Arc system. It's got Iron Man lift kit, Iron Man bumper, method wheels on it, RCI skids. It's got the Penthouse top 10. Oh, it's fully kitted. Slide out. We got the front runner slide out, drawers in the back, and fridge slide, and everything.
That's awesome.
So there's a 3D rendering that we've done. It's on the website over on the right-hand side with all that information. It says, I think, show vehicle or something like that. But yeah, if you want to see what this thing's going to look like.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we'll debut it at the show.
Awesome. All right, Chris. Well, thanks again for your time coming on here. I hope you have a great show. I've already started following on the Instagram stories, and I'm resisting the urge to click through all of them right now while we're talking. So
yeah, it's hard to do. I know. I catch myself often kind of spacing out and going through those.
I know it. All right. Well, say thanks to Aaron for me and say hello there. And hopefully you'll have a great show.
All right. Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks for having me on real quick.
You bet. We'll talk to you later. All right, gentlemen. It hasn't been that long, but maybe have you had any chance to get after some things? Craig, we'll start off with you. Is the Jeep any closer to running? This is like the saga, the ongoing saga of the YJ.
God. Yeah. Oh, saga. You is right. Well, no, we got into the cleaning of the garage, and oh my God, I was able to get the other transmission that was spread out on the table, got it off the table, got it into a box, got it out of the way, got the tables cleaned up, and so I can actually get under the Jeep. So cross my fingers. I'm hoping to be under it doing the oil pan this weekend.
Okay.
I want to be under there on Saturday morning. I'm hoping Saturday morning. But
is the transmission any closer to did you get all that figured out?
Oh yeah, I did. I found a because the input shaft for the transmission is larger than, and I needed a pilot bearing. I actually found a pilot bearing from a Dodge pickup truck that fits over the shaft and actually fits in the hole.
Nice. And
stays in there. And so I'm like, and it didn't change shape when I tapped it in, because I used the what is it? The tool that you line up your clutch with.
Yeah, the alignment tool.
The alignment tool. I stuck it in there and spun it, and there was no resistance. There was no catching. It wasn't like oblong. Okay. Like you move it around, it didn't feel oblong. It just felt nice and solid. So I'm like, okay, well, it's looking like I solved that problem.
Okay.
So oil pan, then I'm going to have to pull the flywheel off. I mean, honestly, it's not that bad. I mean, I should have the oil pan done in an hour and a half?
Yeah, that shouldn't take long at all.
No, it's just how much pain it's going to take to take off the flywheel. You know, that's my only gotcha.
Oh, man.
But since I'm crawled under there, depending on how well my knees hold out, or how long that,
Yeah. So once it's all done, do you have like a special shakedown run kind of planned? Is there some place you're going to go for like the reintroduction of the YJ back to trails?
I'll probably run, grab a couple of buddies and say, hey, man, I need to shake this down. Let's hit Hollister.
Yeah.
And I'll have a couple of buddies that'll just say, hey, yeah, let's go.
And Hollister's pretty close to you, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, it's the closest off-road park for vehicles. And Hollister's about hour 30, hour 40 minutes from here.
Okay.
So
in that amount of time, I can be in Johnson Valley, and I will have bypassed a number of trails.
Yeah, I know.
This is I still can't believe I get to enjoy this down here in Southern California like this. I'm definitely going to miss that part whenever I do move.
If you have to move.
Oh, no, I'm definitely moving. Yeah, that would be the craziest thing I have ever experienced in almost 17 years in the Army. But they're definitely going to move me. That is not the question. All right, Rich. I know it hasn't been that long either, but what all has been new? Has there been anything new in your off-roading world?
Not in the off-roading world. We did manage to get a radio and some speakers installed in my son's truck. The highs here have been, the highs have been ranging from 5 to 12.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's been colder here. I'm looking at the temperature right now. It's colder here than it is in Fairbanks.
Yeah. That's funny. I mean, It's funny. I got an email from a friend in the, Leavenworth, Kansas City area, and he said it was cold, but, I did not realize he was not joking.
Yeah. So, and I think the high this weekend is supposed to be 3. So
great camping weather.
So yeah, we're not accomplishing much around here right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I, on the other hand, have basically great weather. It's Southern California. It's great except for when it's hot. So, which allowed me to get some work done. I finally finished the roof rack project that I had. So I've got the Garvin Wilderness rack that's been on my Jeep since I bought it in 2004. And before that, it was on the other Jeep that I had. And before that, it was on somebody else's Jeep. So it's been around Jeep Cherokees for a long time. And it was overdue to kind of get refinished. So I stripped off all the paint that needed to be stripped off. There were some sections that were still, great finish on it. But I cut it, all the way in half, which doesn't take a lot. It's a roof rack, and added 12 inches to it. So now the rack is a full 6 feet long, which is pretty good. It kind of adds to the capacity of the roof rack a lot, which is absolutely necessary. But that's all done. Got that painted and installed. Everything's great. And what do you know? My wife, she borrows the Jeep to go run something around while I was doing something with the truck. And the passenger side window went down, made a loud noise, and then did not go back up. And for anybody that's had a Jeep Cherokee for a while is probably familiar with the fairly poor design of the power window arrangement in there. And then the two-door is especially bad because it's a much bigger piece of glass, and it's trying to ride on two channels, and it just, inside the door is a mess. And the two-door parts are basically non-existent. So, I tried to epoxy everything back together as best I could, and so far unsuccessfully. There's a company in Florida, I think is where they're at, and they can rebuild it for, it's like $325, I was quoted, which is insane. There's no way I'm paying that. This is already an old piece of junk Jeep Cherokee that's being held together by frequent touches and me working on it all the time. But there's no way I'm paying that much money for this power window thing.
You mentioned the power window, and I thought you were going to be talking about the Ram.
No, the Ram has its other issue.
Well, have you had the issue with the power windows on the Ram?
No, I don't even know what issue you're talking with. So
both of mine have done this to where the power window will just stop working randomly.
What?
Yeah, it did in my 1500, and it's done it once or twice in my 2500. But if it does ever happen to you, it's a really easy fix.
Yeah. So what is it?
You hold the power window button up for like 3 seconds, drop it down, hold down for like 3 seconds, and after that it resets and it should work.
So this is purely a computer problem.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm surprised it has, because yours is a 17 also, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow, that's dumb. No, the Jeep power window is all mechanical bits were busted inside.
Oh, yeah.
So what I ended up finding through the many hours of Googling, there's a company in New York, Steiger Performance, and he makes a clip. So you know how like on a winch cable when it attaches to the drum, on some brands of winches, it has just a little clip that bolts on to the drum to hold the end of the cable on.
Right.
It's something similar to that holds the cable, because it's a cable-driven system inside there, holds the cable to this like carriage that moves the window up and down. And when you look at the two-door design, there's these two carriages, and one is a push and one is a pull, and they move the window up and down together. But if one of the carriages is not connected, it's going to push that glass at a weird angle, and it's going to jam up, and it's going to break again. So I think it's $40 I paid for this little clip that holds the carriage to the cable, and I was hoping it would be here today, but it hasn't arrived yet. But it seems like a pretty straightforward thing. We'll get that fixed, and the Jeep will be back in business, ready to go out, hopefully in time for, I think, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend, to Craig's point last episode. Looking at doing a trip out to Death Valley. And this is going to be a quick one, but I want to be able to have two vehicles so we can see the sights and do some trails and have the trailer out there to do camping. And that's the plan, and I need a window to work. I'd prefer for the window to work anyways. It really wouldn't stop me, but that's the thing. But now to the Ram, like you said, the ride height sensor. Now, Rich, did yours have the air ride suspension?
The 1500 had the air ride.
The 1500. Did you have any issues where the sway bar like clipped off the wire that attaches to the sensor?
I never had any issues with my air ride at all.
So what I have found is that the sway bar in link just rides way too close to where that cable attaches to the sensor. And it's this like sensor that's got mechanical bits that attach to the upper control arm or A-arm, and it attaches to the frame. So that's how it just monitors the ride height. And that cable just severed clean off while I was out there at Johnson Valley. And it did not negatively impact the way the air ride suspension worked. So it all worked, but it would give me the warning, like, service the air suspension system. And I'm out of warranty, I'm pretty sure. And also, this was, bad design, but I clearly did it while off-roading, so I wasn't going to, like, go crying to a dealership like somebody who took a Jeep Gladiator through the mud and ruined it or something. So I got my soldering iron out. I disassembled the plug and just used the little nubbins of the wire ends that were still left once I disassembled the plug. Got it resoldered up, connected back in there. No problem. But it's a design issue. Just where that plug attaches, it's bound to happen again. And I don't know. It's frustrating. There's really no way to make a shield to prevent it.
Well, that's the first I've heard of that issue with the air ride. Usually it's a pump issue.
Yeah.
And when it fails, it drops the truck down into entry mode, which
because there's no pressure to hold it up.
Right. And I'm sure you've had your truck in entry mode, and when you do, you can't.
It rides like doo-doo.
Well, not only does it ride like doo-doo, but you can't really turn either because your front wheels are scraping everywhere. And
yep. I mean, it essentially drops it down to the bump stops.
Right.
Yeah, that would be pretty miserable. So that's why after texting back and forth with you, I was like, I guess I really need to get this fixed, because even to get the truck from my house to the dealership, I've got to drive 45 miles, and most of that highway. And I did not want it to, like, shut me down into some sort of limp mode or not drive at all. So that's fine. I had to get after that and got it fixed, but whatever. Also, just one other thing I want to mention before we move on to the rest of the news is that Martin from Milestar Tires, who we interviewed just recently when in this time-shifted podcast environment, he was a co-driver in the King of the Hammers. I had no idea. And they finished. And not just finished, they finished well. So I think now is probably a pretty good time. We can jump over to our news. And I've lost the bumper music, so whatever. But let's start off with the Everyman Challenge. And the Everyman Challenge is a variety of different classes, the 4800, the 4500, and 4600. So that's something worth talking about some other time. But let's see. I'm looking at now. This is it has a driver of record. So Mike Johnson, car number 43, had Martin from Milestar Tires as the co-driver, and they finished 9th. So that's phenomenal. Finishing,
that's not bad at all.
Yeah, finishing is its own accomplishment in itself, but finishing 9th, that's outstanding. And so there's the number one finisher. Actually, we can just go through like the top 5, and you'll recognize some of these names. Chase Caprara, he qualified 4th to begin with, and finished 1st with a total lap time of 4 hours, 27 minutes, and 18 seconds, that's awesome. Came in ahead of Brad Lovell in 2nd place. Casey Gilbert took 3rd place. Cameron Steele got 4th. And then the top 5 rounding that out was Dan Fresh. And, there's 11 minutes behind 1st place was Brad. Then another 19 minutes was Casey. Cameron Steele, 21 minutes behind. So those top finishers, they're all really close together.
It looks like 4 and 5 were like almost dead on with each other.
Yeah.
Finish time.
Yep.
On no, because one's 5. No.
Yeah, they just messed up on the timing here, but
yeah, they didn't put the time behind because one was 5 hours and 19 minutes. The other one was 4 hours. 48 minutes.
Either way, it's worth giving a shout out to Kevin Jones. He came in 14th, showing here. And Kevin Jones, he's on Instagram, Ultra4Jones. If you're not following him, he did a ton of stories and everything. It was really fun to kind of watch all of his trials and tribulations and the prep and getting ready for the race. And that's one of the things I really like about the Everyman Challenge, especially because these are all not totally unobtainable vehicles. I mean, they're extremely well built, but it's relatable, more relatable anyways, than to what they're doing in the 4400 class, which is the unlimited, the super expensive ones here. And speaking of the 4400 class, the number one first place was Randy Slauson, and this made three-time winner of the King of the Hammers. So there's been some others that have accomplished that, but congrats to Randy Slauson for that. And then the Gomez brothers, JP Gomez and Raul, they both took second and third. So two brothers closing out the podium there. That's pretty awesome. And fourth place went to Bailey Cole. He is, in fact, related to Dave Cole, the race organizer, helped put the Ultra 4 Racing and King of the Hammers together. And then Von Gittin Jr. Took out number 5. Some other, previous winners, Eric Miller. He's got a pretty awesome car. Levi Shirley. Bailey Campbell took 9th. Jason Shearer, 10th. And we'll talk more about some of these guys here later. But it was a really hard race this year. Just the way the course was laid out, it required a lot more rock crawling than it has in the past. So the attrition rate was really tough. But again, King of the Hammers is a great time, and it really worked out well. Did you guys watch any of the live coverage or anything on YouTube during the week?
I didn't get a chance to watch any of it this year, unfortunately.
I was able to watch. I shared the link on our Facebook page, and I watched a little bit on that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, the coverage was so good. Like, just what you could do with, like, a Facebook watch party or something where, you can chat with people while you're watching. It's just as good, in a lot of cases, better than actually being there, because you can see the entire course. And we were kind of posted up at the back door, and in hindsight, I think it would have been better over at Chocolate Thunder. But there was thousands of people. I'll put a picture on Instagram here of, like, when you look across the lake bed from Chocolate Thunder from Backdoor over to Chocolate Thunder, you can see it's just thousands of vehicles parked there looking. And some of those areas, like both places, I think have the big screen where you can watch the live feed. They kind of pipe that in there. But, for those that could not attend due to COVID, travel distance, whatever it was, I highly recommend checking that out for next year. And really, it's on YouTube now. I think you can actually go to the Ultra 4 Racing YouTube channel and watch some of that, rewatch it. And it's long. It's a long race. So maybe just turn it on in the background and let it run and check in on it every now and then. But one of the things that they made a big announcement is that Ford is now backing Ultra 4 Racing. They've got 3 Broncos that are there wearing all the Bronco colors and the Bronco skin. And they have this specific one that they've built. Actually, I think there's a couple for the 4600, which is not the Unlimited. That's down in the Everyman Challenge. But they're going to be racing it in the entire Ultra 4 Racing series. And this, I'm told, has, from the brief and what they did at the announcement there in Hammertown, this does utilize a lot of the Ford Bronco factory stuff. So it looks like they're trying to use it not just, to prove what it's capable of. They are trying to win. But, by racing, you do learn a lot about a vehicle and what works well and what doesn't. So they've made changes for the safety gear, the roll cage, the seats and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, this is going to be a major test vehicle for the Ford Bronco. So what do you guys think about the non-sport version, the actual Ford Bronco that people want?
Can't wait to actually see it.
Yeah.
It's one of those you need, we're seeing pictures of it. The commercials are not doing the vehicle justice.
You don't like the colt that grew up with the goats?
That commercial is probably the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, what? I was trying to figure out what they were talking about, and then at the point they go goat mode, I'm like, really? You put goat mode? Just four-wheel low. Come on.
Yeah,
it's
well,
just four-wheel low.
But it's not. Like, they've got this, high-end, fancy electronic terrain response system or whatever that's becoming kind of, it's what's in most modern four-wheel drive vehicles now, because apparently you don't know what the difference is between driving in sand and rocks. So there's a computer for that.
Yeah, does it get out and air down your tires too?
No, I don't think it does that.
Yeah.
But the GOAT mode is a very forced acronym. So it's supposed to be goes over any type of terrain is what I've seen it as, but that would be 2 T's in GOAT, and it's not spelled that way inside the actual vehicle. So maybe just shorten it to goes over any terrain. But this is pretty good. So in this article, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just wondering. I'm just trying to look at their page while we're doing it, because I really haven't looked into the Ford, and I just wanted to see if they were actually doing a 2-door and a 4-door.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. And that's one of the nice things, is that they are removable. And no, wait. I think they're removable. No, I'm second-guessing myself.
They have the Bronco, which has a removable top, and then they have the Bronco Sport, which doesn't look like it has...
No, the Bronco Sport fits in the same category as the new Jeep Cherokee. Like, same family as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me, too. I mean, honestly, if I was in the market to buy a Bronco, I'd probably do the 2-door, do old school Bronco 2-door.
Yeah. Okay. So I do remember the doors are removable. And one of the things that they did right, the Jeep failed at, is the side view mirrors are attached to that fender and not the door. So when the door comes off, you still have a mirror. I don't know why Jeep couldn't have figured that one out.
It's the aftermarket thing, but you got to remember where the Jeep pillars are on their door would interfere if the door was on.
That's
and the
true.
mirror was on, would interfere. So I'm guessing that these, we need to get our hands on it. You need to go down to the Ford dealership and get in one and see.
Well, I don't think you're going to be seeing those until at least the fall of 2021, maybe early 2022, just based on supply chain stuff and, COVID still impacts everything. But, all right, so here we are. We're looking at a story on Autoblog where we've got all the pictures here. And the quote here from Mark Rushbrook, the global director of Ford Performance Motorsports. He's saying that the Bronco 4600 underscores how ready the all-new Bronco is for competition and how Ford Performance is committed to driving the brand's success across multiple off-road series. We look forward to off-road racing teams coming to this platform and the Ford Performance stepping up to continuously enhance the state-of-the-art in off-road racing for them. Now, when he says... the DNA here. So here's some of the stuff that is on this specific one in the 4600 class. And you tell me if you think this is Ford or Ford buying all the good parts. They've got 4 Fox coilover shocks with remote reservoirs and pneumatic bump stops. There's the portal hubs from 74 Weld. Triton Engineering control arms. Dana Advantech E-locking differential with RCV custom half shafts, and the Howe hydraulic steering rack with cooler. Special Triton Engineering links, Dynatrac Pro Rock XD60 with an ARB 35 spline air locker and Spider Track, Spider 9 axle shafts and hubs, Willwood brakes, Method race wheels. the 202 forged beadlocks, and then, of course, the 35-inch BFG Goodrich mud terrains, the KM3s. So out of all of that, I think the only thing that I think will actually be on the Bronco is the KM3s and the Fox shocks, but not coilovers. But
I agree.
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know. I like the idea of the portal axles.
Oh yeah,
on
me
an
too.
Independent. I think that's a cool idea, but because that'll give you the ground clearance.
Yep,
definitely give you the nice ground clearance and a nice ride on a washboard road.
Sure, I like it. Well, speaking on the Ford. We'll stick to Ford stuff here for a little bit. Had you guys seen the new update here to the Raptor? I think Ford is. They had this in the works. They struck back at Ram pretty fast. I don't think they developed this after they saw the T-Rex coming for them. I still love the idea of the T-Rex and the Raptor. Like, have you seen the T-Rex? There's little Easter eggs where there's a T-Rex chasing down the little Raptors. Have you seen that one?
I think I saw something similar to that. Yeah, but it's interesting. I mean, it's a battle niche, like we were talking about earlier. For me, you're really buying it to just mess around. You're not gonna really race it, so it's not really an off-road racer. So it's just gonna be one of those things you pot around on the pavement with. And because I got a big truck with wide fenders on it.
Well, so, I kind of thought the same thing when the Ford Raptor initially came out. And then when I got to be a co-driver in the Baja 1000, it seemed like every Ford Raptor in existence was down there in Mexico cruising around. And they're definitely being used for pre-runners. I don't know how much of, the Ford Raptor at the time was turned into race trucks, but it would not surprise me if we saw some of these, being used as pre-runners for actual races. But did we get Rich back?
I am back.
Okay. Small technical difficulty, but we're back. So we're talking about the Ford Raptor versus the Ram TRX. So, again, this is another Autoblog story. This one is Ford saying that they're going to change that they're coming after the T-Rex here. So the Raptor returns with this new update with the 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6. Power numbers not provided, along with several other revisions to Ford's tried-and-true formula. So the Raptor is already a worthy adversary to the Ram truck, despite the Ram's power advantage. And so here we go, just quick by-the-numbers comparison. Ram's got let's start with the engine. The T-Rex 6.2-liter supercharged V8 to the Raptor's 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. Yeah, that one win to Ram on that one. 8-speed transmission versus Ford's 10-speed. The power output on that Ram truck, we know all that. 702 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds. And it's funny, all that power, the max towing is 8,100 pounds. So, like Rich, you said, and Craig earlier, like, this is a truck that doesn't necessarily do truck things real great.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll do some things. I mean, it'll tow a mid-size RV trailer, not...
Yeah.
I was actually impressed with the towing. I was like, right, 8,100, that's actually better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But if you look at the payload, payload's 1,300 pounds.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's because of the softer shocks
suspension.
For the suspension, for the off-road running, and you can throw a couple of airbags in there and put a little bit more, be able to put a little bit more weight in there. But I mean, you look at the Ford Raptor, they're not even giving you a power output. They're not giving you a torque output. They're not giving you a 0 to 60 time yet because they're like, oh, okay, this is what we're giving you a turbo V6, but we can't get enough horsepower out of it. We can't match the horsepower.
Yeah.
So we're just going to say,
what really surprised
TBA
me
for now,
Yeah.
because it's we're trying to tune it to get more horsepower out of it, and we can't. So, but hey, their max towing is 100 pounds more and 100 more on the payload. But
I mean that 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, it's an impressive motor, and what they're putting out of it's impressive.
Yeah. I don't know how much more they can squeeze out of it, though.
Right. Right.
And the phrase "there's no no replacement for displacement" it eventually is going to come into play. 6.2 liters is a lot bigger than a 3.5 liter engine.
yeah,
So I was really surprised that there's not a V8 coming back to the Raptor.
I mean, I can understand turbochargers. They have a little bit more torque on the low end, and the turbos have the torque on the top end. So yeah, they're going to have a little bit higher speed on the top end, but the lower end, you're going to get the grunt out of the supercharger. To me, that's just my personal experience.
Well, again, this is a different kind of off-roading than I am accustomed to. This is all about going fast. All these pictures here are desert scenes that I have comparison.
Yeah. And it's off-roading we don't have in my area. So
yeah.
If I'm going to see either of these two trucks around here, they're, like I said before, they're purely novelty trucks. They're trucks just to
very expensive novelties.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pavement pounders.
Yeah. Well, either way, I still do like the look of both trucks. They look really good. Especially, they've got a little bit wider openings for the fenders. The fenders extend out a little bit to cover all the tires. They stuff them up in there. It's a good looking truck. Not gonna lie, I like it. Oh wait, you know what?
Now, if somebody were to give me one, I'm not going to turn it away.
Yeah.
Either one.
Well, if you gave me the Ram, I'd drive it. If you gave me the Ford, I'd sell it and buy a Ram.
All right. So as I read through our show notes here, the article that we're talking about right now was published on February 3rd, where we're talking about, I can't believe it's not getting a V8. But then here, an article on Jalopnik says it is getting a V8. So I don't know which is true. Depends on who you trust here.
Well, that goes back to what I said earlier. They didn't post the numbers because they can't get the numbers they want out of the 6, so they're going to have to throw a V8 in there.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting – everybody wants the high horsepower numbers. But I can give it to Ford. I mean, even a V6, you can get a lot of power out of a V6.
Yeah.
Even a straight 6. I mean, I've heard of a company that the 4-liter engine that's in my Jeep, they were getting 770 horsepower out of one of those things. I'm like, really? And this was a couple of years ago. There was one company that was, they're tearing them down, fully rebuild them with turbochargers and intercoolers and the whole thing. And the guy got like 770 horsepower out of one of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But at a point is you have a big, heavy truck. I would rather have the torque to pull a trailer than have 700 horsepower. I would rather have.
And this coming from somebody
pounds.
who used to have a Ram Charger and wadded it up in the dunes, right?
Yes. But I wasn't going that fast.
Uh-huh. All right,
But
continue.
I would have rather have the torque. I would rather have had the torque. If I would have had the torque, I probably wouldn't have gotten the situation I was in.
All right. So further research here. The Ford Raptor is getting the V6. Now, this article, thank you, David Tracy from Jalopnik, for tricking me with the clickbait. There's going to be a Raptor R. So the racing version of the Raptor that will get a V8. And they're also saying that the the rumor that our Raptor R will not be street legal is not correct. So you will be able to get a Ford Raptor with a V8 on 37-inch tires because, you know, everything is getting larger now. That's a big truck. It's going to go fast, and it's probably going to cost a large pile of money.
Yeah, back to what we were saying. Niche truck.
Yeah. Well, we can move some stuff around here. You know, one of the articles we were going to talk about later was the other super truck, the GMC Hummer EV. This came out a while back, or it was announced a while back, and we really didn't talk about it because we didn't have a show to come out. But this is. Have you guys seen everything that the new Hummer truck can do? Everything.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm impressed actually by an electric vehicle, and I'm the 32 inches of forged water. That's pretty damn deep.
That's real deep, yeah. And it's funny because, so they show the water, this picture here, has the water over the top of the tires. And we're saying 32 inches. I thought I had larger than 32 inches tall tires. I don't know. I believe this picture may be doctored. As surprising as that may be.
Well, I actually, yeah. Well, you got to admit the picture's doctored because.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Where they are, yeah. There's no water there. Come on.
But so the Hummer EV is loaded with all kinds of cool things. Lots of cameras, lots of power. They said that. So when you're talking electric vehicle horsepower, that's kind of a funny number, but 1,000 horsepower, 11,500 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. That's impressive. But they do call it the super truck, so I imagine it's better than the Super Jeep on the Alaska Off-Road Show, but this is a legit good.
Wait a minute. This says it's $112,000?
Yeah, super truck comes with super price. Don't you know? So here's some other things that it's got the four-wheel steering, which not only allows you to turn like the front wheels in one direction, the rear wheels will go the other direction for a super tight 37.1 foot turning radius, but it also allows the crab walk, so where both the front tires and the rear tires are angled the same direction. That could be, very helpful in off-roading scenarios. The ride height is adjustable. Hopefully their ride height sensors are positioned differently than they are on the Ram truck. But it's got 6 inches of travel, I guess, from the lowest setting to the highest setting, making a total of 15.9 inches of ground clearance, which is, by the way, more than the Ford Raptor on 37-inch tires. So that is impressive.
Well, if you look down now, we were talking about the picture. It comes with 35-inch tires, but with an option of 37-inch tires.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm going back and reading about the water fording. This says it has a water fording depth of 26 inches. But that picture you were looking at says 32 inches. Where are they?
Yeah, I think somebody's...
Yeah, I guess it increases. I guess maybe it's the air suspension or something that it increases it to 32 inches.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a very weird article.
Yeah.
Well, you got to be careful. You don't want to air up while you're underwater. Then you just fill the air suspension with water.
Yeah, I imagine if they're going to use air, like the Ram truck system, it's a closed system. So there's nitrogen in the tanks, and it's just moving the nitrogen from the capture tank to like a ballast. Yeah. So it's not really like an air compressor that you could also use for airing up tires on. Yeah.
But it's actually a decent looking truck. it's more of a Ute style. It doesn't have like the bed separate, so it's a Ute style, as Australian
you know what?
Friends would say.
Yeah,
and I actually like the idea of what they did with the top. They made it a 3-piece top, just like the Jeep.
Yeah, the top's smart, but it just you're right. I had not even noticed that the bed is still like the same set of panels that kind of goes in everything else. So it's not like a real truck. And this is like one of the defining features, as far as I'm concerned, of a truck, is that the bed is separate from the cab. Like, and this is definitely not that case.
It's a Honda Ridgeline.
It's an Avalanche.
It's a $100,000 plus Honda Ridgeline. But as we know, like,
I don't think it's a unibody or anything like that.
No. Just making fun of that. But I don't know.
The style.
I love that they think
it's a skateboard platform.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that I always talk about with the electric vehicle is the range. So GM is estimating 350 plus miles of range for Edition 1, which is fine. And then pick up where I was at talking the range. All right, so GM is estimating a 350 plus miles of range for Edition 1, which is pretty good. And they're assuming there's a DC fast charger near your favorite off-road park, which I don't believe is necessarily the case. However, now that I think about it, like down here is Stoddard Wells off-road vehicle area down Southern California. There actually is some of these superchargers that the Tesla has kind of put together. So there is, in fact, fast chargers near off-roading areas. But those with a supercharger will get you 100 miles of range in about 10 minutes of charging, which is really impressive. That, it's not the same as hitting the gas station, filling up, but if you're going to stop somewhere, go to a restaurant, go shopping, whatever like that, then yeah, you're going to be gone for 10 minutes.
No, it's just say it has a bed. You just bring a generator with you. So you stop, fire up the generator, plug it in, and have lunch. And
yeah. Have you guys seen the Long Way Up
4
series?
Hours for it to charge.
The Long Way Up series with
yeah.
I haven't watched the whole thing. I started it, but the whole thing just feels very apologetic to EVs and the charging hassles, and
yes.
It was just stressing me out the entire time, so I couldn't watch anymore.
It got better, but yeah, no. But these vehicles here, I don't think finding a charger is ever going to be an issue, because I don't think a lot of these are really going to ever really see dirt.
Totally agree.
Oh, very true. Very true.
Totally agree.
And they don't tow worth a damn, because I saw a video somebody did with they tried to tow a adventure trailer with a Tesla X, and they could barely make it from charging station to charging station. And they were trying, I guess, to make it to one of the off-road shows, and I think it was the Off-Road Expo. They were trying to make it to one of those, and they couldn't make it. They couldn't make it in time because they sat there and had to. They spent more time charging than they did on the road.
That's a terrible sales pitch.
Yeah, completely.
Well, so this is a pretty good transition to the next thing here. Where you have the Jeep Gladiator is getting the 4xe powertrain that Jeep has announced for the Wranglers previously, but now it's coming to the other vehicles, the Gladiator. And this is, it's a plug-in hybrid, so not a full electric, but I think the hybrid makes more sense for the electrification of an off-road vehicle than a full electric. So
yeah, you're going to get hella better gas mileage, I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah.
So I am kind of shocked that they put it in the Gladiator before they put it in the Grand Cherokee. I would have thought they would put it in the Grand Cherokee before they put it in either the Jeep Wrangler or the Jeep Gladiator.
Yeah. Well, I don't know which vehicle is making
wrong?
the most money for them, but I think the take rate is higher on the Wrangler and the Gladiator. That's kind of their halo vehicles. They're iconic ones. Whereas the Grand Cherokee at this point is really starting to kind of blur into all of the other SUVs that are out there. It doesn't really stand out as much as it used to.
And that's why I would have thought you would put it in that to get people back into a Jeep. I mean, most people, don't like the boxy style of a Jeep, a Wrangler, or the Gladiator, but I mean the Grand Cherokee, that's a good looking SUV. I almost bought one instead of my Durango.
I'm curious where they put the battery pack in this.
I'm guessing the gas tank's a lot smaller. I think that's right. I think if you look up the fuel tank is a lot smaller than.
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, usually they're putting them kind of under the floor or, in the transmission tunnel for an electric vehicle because there's no transmission. But, if they have these batteries that are just kind of lining the floor.
Well, surely they didn't put it. I don't know. I mean, they're heavy.
They are heavy. That's why having them on the floors makes the most sense.
And the gas tank on a Wrangler is underneath the driver. So surely they wouldn't take away tank space to put battery space underneath the driver's side.
Yeah.
That's really lopsided, putting all that weight just on the driver's side.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
interesting.
It's on the driver's side, but it's behind the driver.
It's still on the left side of the vehicle, not in the center.
And that's typically like the springs on that side will wear out faster than the other because, there's always going to be that one person in the driver's seat if that vehicle's moving.
Well, we need a picture of the underside of that sucker. That's what we need. So
yeah.
We know.
Or somebody who listens to the show and works at the factory and works at Jeep, they can maybe send us some feedback.
Take a picture of the bottom of the Jeep and send it to us. I'd love to see.
Yeah.
But I wonder if that's why they did the Gladiator versus
Cherokee.
A different vehicle. Yeah.
That could be
because of the platform.
Yeah. Well, what we don't know is when the Gladiator 4xe is going to come out, but they said they expect to see it before the end of 2021, and it'll be as a 22 model year. So there's going to be the gas electric version of the new Grand Cherokee, and they do say that one will not get the diesel engine, but let's see here. So the Wrangler, it's a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with the electric on there, 17 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, which I'm not sure how 17 kilowatt-hour battery compares to a full electric. I'll have to look that one up.
Coming up to the really impressive number.
Yeah. It's 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. That's legit. You can do some stuff with that. I like it. Well, speaking of Grand Cherokee, we're just loaded with smooth transitions. I swear I did not intentionally plan this out. This is the Grand Cherokee L, so bringing a third-row seat to the Grand Cherokee. Now, what I really thought that there was going to be we've talked about a Wagoneer, right? And a Grand Wagoneer. So is this like the Grand Cherokee L is you're splitting hairs between the Grand Cherokee and the Wagoneer? Like, there's really just, you pick your size all the way up?
I don't know. Maybe like a bridging vehicle or something.
Yeah. This seems like a bad idea because
if I remember right,
I think something's going to eat the sales of something else.
Well, wasn't the pricing of the Grand Wagoneer going to be pretty much up there?
I thought we had talked about that, and it was supposed. I feel like I remember something in the $70,000 range.
Right. So maybe this is a little more affordable. Maybe, I don't know. It is. It's a weird vehicle to put in alignment in this lineup when you've got another larger vehicle coming.
Yeah. And what I've noticed is like even the front end on the new Grand Cherokee L starting to look pretty close to the Wagoneer. I remember the Wagoneer had more slats in the grill, so this is still a 7-slat grill, where the Wagoneer had them sliced a little more thinly. So just from looking at the front, you should be able to tell a little bit of a difference between them. But what I don't see is will that third row seat be, made for CJ-size people and people the size of Lego men? Or is this going to be like all your cargo room is now gone, or how that's going to work?
I think it's going to be like most third row seating in SUVs, where it's child only. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think it'll be the exact same as my Durango. It'll be the same. It'll be the same platform, the same length, same wheelbase, and they'll just pop a rail and put a different sheet metal wrapping around it.
Yeah, well, I'm clicking through the pictures here on the Autoblog story, and, it does show that there is, let's see, there's a front row seat, there's the middle seat, and then there's a third row seat, and there's a duffel bag behind it with a couple inches before the tailgate closes. I don't know how that's possible.
Just like my Durango. I got about 1.5 feet between the back seat and the gate.
Oh, well, that's enough to fit your groceries in. And these Grand Cherokee L's are likely destined just to ferry kids and soccer balls and shopping bags back and forth.
Yep. That's what all SUVs today are really used for, except for our special ones.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they're going to have an SRT version of this. I saw an SRT pass me the other day, and
we're going off on a tangent.
Oh man,
this I think we did too many stories. We're the poor person that is going to be listening to this is going to be. We're at 2 hours.
Oh yeah,
45 minutes.
This is going to get somebody to and from work, and I know a lot of folks that listen to the show. They're listening while at work or
4 or 5
like
times. You're going to have to pause the show. Oh, I got to go into work. Come back. Oh, okay. Where was I on the podcast?
That's fine. Why not? Let's see.
I found that article where we talked about the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer. The Wagoneer, they said, would start, again, this is speculation, around $60,000, and the Grand Wagoneer would be pushing 6 figures.
Oh, so they're really ramping up there to super truck pricing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, if you were like cross shopping and you only had 4 people that you had to carry, why would you get a Grand Wagoneer when you get yourself a super truck, the Hummer EV? Interesting. All right. Well, I think this is finally a bad transition, flipping the price completely on its head and the size of the vehicles. This is the Polaris RZR Trail. Is coming out with new hunting trims for the Ranger in 2021. Now, since going out to King of the Hammers and seeing like the capability of these RZRs and the side-by-sides, like I've been getting piles of messages on Instagram from folks who said, yeah, I didn't like the RZRs until I got one, and now they're believers. So, and I can totally see why. This is basically like buying a turnkey race car. And now this one, the RZR Trail S, is going to allow... It's more suited for people like me that also like off-roading activities, but use it for a tool such as like hunting, things like that. What do you guys think of this? You think the RZRs are going to continue to grow in popularity even more than they already are?
I think the popularity is going to stay high.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I have here in Brentwood, where I am, I've actually seen a couple that have got license plates for them, and they're driving them around on the street.
Wait, what? You've seen
you can
license
these things
in California?
In California, the guy has a motorcycle license plate on it, and he's got street tires. So you have to, you can go online and find the regulations to actually make these things street legal. You got to get the street legal tires, a windshield, and wipers. And
does it have to be a glass windshield, or can it be a plexiglass thing?
It can be, as long as it's a windshield.
A windshield of some kind.
Glass. Doesn't have to be glass.
Oh my gosh!
You can just get the one that comes with they have plexiglass that Polaris and Can-Am, and they all sell these ones. There's one running around here. It's a Can-Am, and then 2 that are Polarises.
Wow, you're blowing my mind right now, because like the perk of having a smaller Jeep is that it's street legal. But if you have basically a race car that you can get street legal for about the same price, you can spend less on a used like CJ than it does to go buy a new RZR or Can-Am. But boy, if you can get that street legal,
aren't these things like $15,000, $20,000, $25,000?
Yeah, they're expensive as all hell. And it's just like, oh yeah, I'd love to have one, but it costs the same as my Durango. When we went to the Sandsport.
Yeah.
Or no, you didn't go to the Sand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where we met up.
Okay, we did go to the Sandsport show. You walked in, I think they were selling some of those things that were all custom out for $40,000.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely, there's no limit to what you can spend on these. Like, let's be clear.
You can spend on anything.
But, my hang up was always that after you buy that, you also have to have the truck and the trailer to get all the things there. And if you plan to camp, then you're looking at a toy hauler too. So again, like it just spirals out of control. So,
and you're probably going to spend another $5-8 making it street legal with all those kits you got to get.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I promise,
if you're in an area that'll make it street legal.
I mean, let's just say you bought a 4-seater Can-Am, and you did all the things to make it street legal. You add on. I think the list price for the Can-Ams that I saw on display in Hammertown, they were about $25,000. So $30,000 for a really sweet Can-Am 4-seater. That's still less than you would buy for a Jeep Wrangler. And you cannot drive a Jeep Wrangler in stock form the same way you would a Can-Am. Like, dollars to fun factor, these side-by-sides are going to blow it out of the water.
But think about this.
But you also can't drive a Can-Am
on the freeway.
Like you can't on a freeway. Like you can't a Jeep Wrangler.
That sounds high adventure.
So now you have to buy the truck, which is $40,000. Then you got to buy the flatbed trailer, which is about another $5,000, and then you buy. So now we're talking $70,000. You can build a decent, Overlander for $70,000.
Not decent. You can buy a real nice one, built it up. Like that's good.
Yeah. So it's all how deep your pockets are and what you're willing and you want to do. I mean, if you're going to go like an Overlander, you're going to go from spot to spot to spot. This don't make sense.
No, my pockets are not that deep.
If you're going to go, you're going to camp, and then you're going to pull it off the vehicle and go play and leave your RV in one spot. Then, this could make make more sense.
Again, I don't see a RZR in my future, but if that TRX or Raptor that somebody decides to give me has a RZR in the back,
you'll also take one of those.
Happy to take it. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Why not? All right.
Now they make a RZR rack for your Dodge, right? That you can put the RZR up on top.
Yeah, you do not want to be off the track on that. Like that's a big thing to come falling off.
I don't know. My payload's only 1,300 in that Ram. How heavy is this thing?
It's more than that. You're probably in trouble. Oh, well, I think that's enough for the news here. Let's go ahead and move on. Our next segment here is the Off-Roading 101. And one of the things that, I kind of thought about here recently is when do you do your post-off-roading, post-wheeling inspection? Do you do it before you wash it or do you do it afterwards? So, Craig, what's your rhythm for inspecting vehicles after an adventure?
Well, depends on where I am. Are you talking about at the end of the trail when you're going to head home? Are you talking after you get home?
We'll say after you're home.
Or
everything's
after
done.
Oh, then well, first I do a quick walk around, see if I'm seeing any oil or grease, build up, which I learned after my last trip in my Jeep and burnt my transmission out. Decided that it really makes sense to at least take a quick look under there, see if you got any issues like I did, a bunch of oil everywhere, and then go clean it and then find out where it's leaking from if you can't. But that's the way I'm going to do it. How about you, Rich?
Well, mine it's a little different. It depends on. There's a lot of different factors. If it's mud, I'm going to go clean it first because you're not going to see anything if it's mud. Now, if it's real dry dust and stuff like that, then yeah, you'll start to see caking and moisture where everything's leaking. It's a little more obvious if it's just dry, dusty environments. So if it's dusty, I'll check it before I leave. See what I can find, and then I'll take it back, and then I'll clean everything up real good, and then take a closer look. If it's muddy, I just clean everything before I look at anything.
Yeah, I'm in the same way. Like it's tough mud. It's just once it's all caked in there, like you literally just can't get anything. And even when you get under there, it's falling in your face. But
Right.
like down here, it's dirt and dust and everything. And what you're looking for is where the moisture is kind of soaking up some of that, and it's soiling the dirt that's collected there. And also, it'll show you where the witness marks are a little more easily. So what I mean by that is where metal is rubbing on metal. If a bolt has come loose and the hole that the bolt goes through is kind of wallowed out, you'll see that movement kind of wearing metal on metal. But it doesn't necessarily show up as easily once it's washed. But you can see that rubbing of the dirt moving it away. And then once you wash it off, to go back and check that specific spot, tighten up bolts, whatever. Now, that's if you have not used like racer's paint or safety paint. I don't remember what it's called. Where you're like, put that line of paint across the nuts so you can see if it's loosened up. That line is obviously out of alignment. But, most people don't do that. I have not yet stepped up to that. I know I've been meaning to. It's just, hasn't happened yet. So, as you're getting ready.
To-do list.
Yeah. Well, so next up here is kind of our Onyx segment that we usually talk about. And naturally, my show notes just crashed. But the trail that we're kind of featuring this time, I passed it multiple times on my way out to King of the Hammers, and this is Rattlesnake Canyon. This is a very well-known trail that is not far from King of the Hammers. It's just off the other direction from Johnson Valley. And we've got a show in the show notes. There is a screen capture of what you'll see once you're a paid subscriber to Onyx. And then we have a link specifically to this Rattlesnake Canyon Trail. And you'll see it's got the difficulty rating. This is a moderate, a 4 out of 10. Typically takes about 2 hours long. It's almost 16 miles. And then the highest point along there. It even shows you the types of vehicles that are recommended. This one I like because it's everything. Motorcycles, ATVs, side-by-sides, and your full-size overland-style rigs. This is great. I'm really a fan of Onyx, and I plan to get out here. I know in my area around like Calico and everything, there's still a lot of trails that are not mapped. So I'm going to go through, do some exploring as soon as I get a chance, and record those tracks and submit them and continue to expand because, Onyx is still a growing platform. So this is great. Next up, we got a feedback from Mark Carrera, and, he's sent in emails a bunch of times. Love it. So once again, I have a comment on your last show. At one time, I considered a Subaru, but reality reared its head. I need to carry stuff either in the vehicle or towing a trailer. So I went with a Ram 1500. I know, huge change. I wanted a drawer system but can't afford a manufacturer version, so I built one. Living in New Mexico, I don't get enough rain to test the water resistance, but I did take a trip to Wisconsin last September. It rained for 2 days, and inside the drawers were dry. They are, however, not dust-proof, but have kept out the little snow that you got in December. Covered the top with bed liner, added some sand to reduce cargo movement, and in front of the drawers, added a space for a secondary battery, a DC to DC charger, and a 2,000-watt inverter when I can afford it. I ran conduit between the section and the back for some DC outlets and an AC outlet. And then there's a couple pictures in here, so it's all put together. And, you know, I asked him later on, like, how much he spent, because sometimes these projects can creep up to a price where maybe it is better just go buy the manufactured version. If you save up your pennies, you can buy it. But I think he said it was about $400 in materials plus his time. And this is definitely more customized, and that's the great thing about this is you build it exactly the way that you want, leaving room for like the battery and the chargers and the inverters and things like that. So more proof that you can make anything work, but it takes some decision, and building things yourself are sometimes the way to go.
Oh, he sent pictures too. That was cool.
Yeah, it came out really good.
You did a good job.
Yep. I am impressed. Great job, Mark. All right. Let's see. I think it's time to close this out. I think this is almost a 2.5 hour long show. So, I want to remind you that we are proud members of the 4x4 Radio Network. Head over to 4x4radio.com and you'll find a huge playlist with all the shows that are here on the 4x4 Radio Network. Well, you can hit play, listen to Center Steer podcast, learn about Land Rovers, Jeep Talk Show, where they've got all things Jeep. Cody and Matt and Jose, I need to add him in there. I can't forget him, from the Trail Chasers. And also On the Trail with Kevin and Scott. You know, funny thing, we had an appointment for one of my kids down at the Children's Hospital in LA, and on the way back, I saw Matt with his Nissan pickup truck, the Frontier. I saw him. We were actually going the same direction. So I've got pictures. I need to put them on Instagram. And I was giving him a hard time because it looked like the bed was about to shake right off the back of his truck. Like the thing was coming apart at highway speeds. But funny, he responded while he was at getting the tires balanced. So there was obviously an issue there. I'm sure the way he drives it, he probably knocked off some wheel weights or something like that. And again, thank you to Artemis Overland Hardware for helping the show continue. Be sure to check them out at artemisoverland.com and hit them up on Facebook, Instagram, and of course the website. Just say thanks for supporting the show here. If you have feedback, you can send it to us like Mark did on email. That is the 4x4podcast at yahoo.com. We are on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, and the Twitter at the 4x4 podcast at all of those. We've got a voicemail text message number, 719-924-5337. Or if you go to the show notes here, the 4x4podcast.com/161, you'll find all the links to everything that we've talked about and a link to the SpeakPipe tool so you can record a nice high-quality message there. But now it's time to hit trails. So tread lightly, God bless, and stay safe while exploring your world.